Hello, everybody, and welcome back. You're watching Robot Rallis, and today we have a special treat. We're going to be doing a limited set review for Brothers War. Today we're doing the commons and uncommons, but first we have some introductions. My co-host is with me. Go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hi everyone, Laura back here again, doing a happy to be back doing a set review. Uh, yeah, been doing a whole bunch of Magic recently. Been tuning up my modern deck, hopefully going out to play it later this week, and I'm out tonight for a cube draft, which I'm super excited about.
That is pretty cool. What kind of cube exactly?
It's my friend's Pauper Cube.
Poplar
So
cube.
it
Okay.
started out as a clone of the Pauper Cube. So there's basically a council of people who do a lot of work on making a really well robust Pauper Cube, and he was like, yes. And then he built it, and then he decided, I'm going to branch out from here, and has added a few things. He's currently tweaking it again for tonight, and it's going to be great.
That sounds pretty cool. So, we're gonna jump right into this set review, just to try and keep things moving because there's a whole lot of cards, more than
Mm,
I thought before, because of the
absolutely.
Artificer's Archives, which are interesting cards. So the way that those work is that in every single pack, there's going to be one of them, and it starts at uncommon and moves upwards. And there's like what 63 in total.
In total, yes. So
Yeah.
that's uncommons, rares, and mythics.
So there's a lot of cards there, a lot of things to keep in mind. Today we're only going to be doing the uncommons from them, but well, that's all there is to it. Let's
Yeah.
start out.
Luckily, there's only 18 of them.
Yeah, 18 uncommons. That's not too awful. So I'm starting with Arbalest Engineers. If you want to go ahead and look that one up,
Yeah, absolutely.
for the to be kind to my viewers, because I got some comments regarding being a little bit wordy last time I did a set review. I'm not going to read out all the text on the cards, but as soon as you have it up, if you want to make a comment about it, feel free, and I'm just going to talk a little bit about it as well. So, Arbalest Engineers, 3 mana, 2/2, and you kind of get this choose your own adventure effect here. And I got to be real, all of these modes are pretty good. You don't really lose with this card.
Yeah. Yeah, it's at minimum, it's a 3/3 with haste.
Yeah.
Gets trample for that first turn. Um, if that one damage ping is worth more, that's great. If your deck is actually looking to do a lot of Power Stone stuff, that's great. But a 3/3 haste at minimum, it's a really decent baseline, and it only goes up from there.
It just feels like it's impossible to make this card miss. Um,
Yeah.
I don't know if it's quite first pickable, but I'm aiming towards like 6.0 to 7.
I would
And
I would splash this card.
yeah, that's,
I
that's,
would be
that's
very
valid.
happy to splash this card.
Speaking of which, I'm going to talk a little bit about my rating since we just arrived at one of them, and also a little bit
Yes.
about Power Stones. So first I'm going to go through the ratings, then I'm going to talk about the Power Stones. So as far as ratings go, I use a 1 to 10 scale instead of like a ABC or anything like that. And the criteria for that is as follows. One are their design mistakes. They're cards that probably shouldn't have been printed the way that they look. They're just miserable to play. They're not good. You should probably not be playing them ever. Number two, twos are sideboard cards slash Y. These are unsupported archetypes or sideboard cards, corner case cards, things that you probably should never be playing in the main, or maybe like 1 out of 200 drafts you could find a way to make it work. Three, these cards are worse than filler. They're the lowest tier of playable, and you'll probably be disappointed if you have to play them. Four are random filler cards. These are mid tiers. These are like 17 to 23rd. A lot of vanilla creatures would end up here if you just don't have anything else to do, if they're not straight up threes. Threes would be things with downsides. Fours would be things with no major upside, no major downside. They're just literally there to fill a role. Five are good cards. These are good playables, things that have slight aggressive costing. They're versatile. They usually beat fours just on their own merits in casting cost and power and toughness. Six is great. These are high tier playables. They're signals that a color combo is open sometimes. They're sometimes removal spells unless they're undercosted or hyper efficient. A lot of creatures are going to sit in the 3 to 6 range. Some of them are going to end up at 7. 7s, however, are first picks. These are archetype defining cards, or things that just blow everything else away in terms of power and upside. These are the cards you're going to be taking. Sometimes they're going to be rares, sometimes they're going to be uncommons and commons. If I say that something's a 7, you should probably be looking for it when you open up a pack. 8 is God tier. These are mythic uncommons, things that make your opponent sigh. They're probably the strongest card in almost any pack at the table, aside from a random bomb rare. These would be cards like potentially Roost of Drakes or Zenith Flare, cards that you're never going to actually get past to you. 9 is rare/design mistakes. I guess Roost of Drakes and Zenith Flare would probably qualify for this one more than the last one. But you're starting to get a sense for the upper echelons of these tiers are just unreachable for most cards. These do not belong in the set at uncommon or lower, and the power level is just at or above most of the rares in the set. And then 10 is unbeatable. These cards should not exist at all at uncommon or lower. You're not going to beat them most of the time when they get played. When your opponents play them and you lose, you're going to say to your friends, I lost to this, and they're going to say, yeah, me too, and you'll have a bad beat story to tell for the next 2 years. And then Power Stones. So Power Stones are an interesting thing from this set that were kind of teased in the last set on Karn, one of the most disappointing planeswalkers I had seen in a while up until a lot of the set was released, which has a lot of speculation around it now. But it is a tapped Power Stone token that has tap, add colorless. This mana can't be spent to cast a non-artifact spell. So you can use it on activated abilities, random additional costs. You can use it on ward. You could use it for a lot of things. You just can't use it to cast non-artifact spells.
Yes.
So when it comes to Power Stone tokens as like a bonus on cards, don't think of it like a treasure, because it is very much not a treasure. Power Stone tokens are only as valuable as the ways you have to use them. You can always find a use for a treasure. You're not always going to have a use for a Power Stone token.
Yeah, I think Power Stone tokens are actually fairly strong in this set.
I agree.
There's a lot of big artifacts that you can work towards. There's a lot of activated abilities as well that you can pay into, especially in blue and white, as far as I remember. But there's a lot of them around basically everywhere.
Yeah, there's a lot of ways to make use of that mana. When you are building your deck, it is definitely possible, although it's, I guess, a lot more difficult in this set than a lot of the others, to end up with a deck where you just don't have that many payoffs for these Power Stones. So this is definitely more of a Tinker's set than a lot of other ones. You're going to have to spend a good amount of time pondering your payoffs and your enablers. And I have a feeling that'll make for an interesting draft format. This might be one of the coolest ones I've seen in a hot minute.
Absolutely.
So with that out of the way, we've talked about the Power Stones, we talked about ratings, and Arbalest Engineers, in my estimation, gets a 6, veering towards a 6.5, between great and possibly first pickable. Next up is Battery Bearer. This is 4 mana in blue-green for a 3/4 that says creatures you control have tap, add colorless. This mana can't be spent to cast a non-artifact spell. And then it pays you off for casting things that are 6 mana or greater by letting you draw a card. Drawing cards is good.
Yeah.
And I've already taken a look, and there's actually a pretty good number of things that are 6 or greater.
14 artifacts that are CMC 6 or greater, but not all of them are in green-blue necessarily.
True. And we'll get to some of those artifacts when we get there, but I think it's very interesting that there are the prototype cards that you can cast for a specific color, but then you can just get the normal front face of the artifact for colorless. I think it's going to
Yes.
be really interesting to see which of those artifacts get played. I think it's contextual. I don't think it's ever going to be, oh, just never play this card if you can't pay the prototype cost. I think some of them are just
Yeah.
good enough to be played regardless.
Yeah. Some of them, I mean, it's the sort of it's the old magic joke of everything is either kicking, like every ability is either kicker or flying, right?
Yeah.
Prototype is basically just kicker. Um,
Yes.
you can definitely view it that way, and see it as a small creature that you can pay extra mana for to become a bigger creature later. Um, just because they've got the big side at the top doesn't necessarily mean that that's the way that you should always be looking at them. And they're a lot more flexible than they might seem at first.
Indeed. And speaking of, as far as Battery Bearer goes, you don't just have to have those big artifacts. You can also just use this mana on activated abilities. There's a pretty healthy number of like
Absolutely.
soldier tokens and random little things running around, and turning all of your creatures into Power Stone tokens, or just having the ability to tap for mana like a Power Stone token, can definitely set you up to do some cool stuff, some grindy things. And I think Battery Bearer might be one of the cards that maybe, if the mana's there, leans
Yeah,
towards multicolor strategy.
absolutely. Yeah.
I think definitely with the draw a card clause on there, it's kind of aiming people in that direction. I don't know off the top of my head if it's there or supported, so I'm inclined to right now give this card a 5, but I think it definitely could be closer to possibly even a 7, depending on how well it's supported.
Yeah. I'm a little lower on it, but that's purely because I see so many other ways of making Power Stone tokens that I'm not sure if it's, you know, I think we just have to wait for the set to come out to really
Yeah.
understand.
Yeah, I mean, I think bare minimum, the 3/4 for 4 with whenever you
Oh,
cast a big
absolutely.
artifact, you get some bonus, is already just at the very least playable. Like the fail cases, it's a hard to cast 3/4 for 4 with some upside. And
Four toughness booty, just
yeah,
chef's kiss. So
and
good.
we'll see if all that extra upside ever actually becomes important. Next up
Yes.
is Evangel of Synthesis, which is a Phyrexian human cleric for 2 mana, and it's a 2/3. A 2/3 for 2 mana. I mean, I'm already kind
Mhm.
of on board so far. And it says
Yeah.
that you get to loot when it enters the battlefield, and as long as you've drawn 2 or more cards, it gets +1/+1 menace that turn. So it can
I think,
definitely
yeah.
beat down some amount of the time, and it definitely holds things back. I think the thing that holds this back the most is the fact that you only get to loot once, and it is a 2, and there is a cap on how good 2s can be. I think this card is, however, good, and I want to give it a 5.
I think this card is really good actually. And I think that the I going through the set, bit of a spoiler alert, I think the blue black draw 2 theme is actually quite strong. And I think that having, if you can pick this up, or it comes halfway around the table and nobody's taken it, I think this is a really good signal that this sort of deck is open and you can try to go for it.
Maybe. I could definitely see this encroaching on a 6 if that deck is as good as it seems to be. I just don't know for sure. Time will tell.
That's the hard part. That is the
I
hard
could
part.
see a draft format where this ends up being a card where you're like, oh dear.
Oh no! Oh no! They've got three of these things. How am I ever gonna?
Oh, speaking
Yeah.
of, do you know off the top of your head what the land situation is like in this set? Do we have some common duels or
Yeah.
anything?
Nope. Sure don't. So there's a rare cycle of dual lands. There are evolving wilds in common slots, and that's basically it.
Okay.
Like the only common lands that can get you multiple colors are common or uncommon, is just evolving wilds. So that's really all you can bank on. There are also a couple cards that pay you off for being in a single color. So this is looking like a 1/2 color set. You're not really like splashing for a third color is going to be hard.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be difficult.
Yeah, with that in mind, I think I'm inclined to give hard to cast twos a slightly lower grade than I usually would be,
It
because
is.
you just
Yeah.
have a 0% chance of picking up a duel. The only things
Yes.
you're going to be picking up even remotely similar are Evolving Wilds, and those are pretty far from duels, unfortunately. And
Very
since it's the only
sadly.
one, they're going to be grabbed up even faster.
Yes.
I speculate that there will be a lot of 9-8 mana bases in this set.
Yeah. It's going to be either 9-8 or you just have 17 swamps or something.
Yeah. Next up is oh dear, here's one. I can't wait to mispronounce this one. I don't know if it's Falahi or Falaji. Vanguard.
I don't know.
I'm gonna go
I
with
can look it up.
I'm gonna go with Falaji,
I
and
don't.
if I'm saying it wrong, I hope
Yeah.
people make fun of me for it. Nah, this is a 4 mana 2/3, which that doesn't look great on its face, but it has first strike, and whenever it or another creature enters the battlefield, a target creature gets +2/+0 until end of turn. That's
Mm,
that's a pretty big bonus. This thing
it
beats
really
down.
is.
First strike is an
It be,
incredibly powerful ability. Um,
and the fact that you can share this out over multiple creatures. Like if this
yeah,
had trample as well, I'd be like, okay, you're stacking this all up on. But because you can actually spread it out, you can spread it all over your like soldier tokens, any number of little flyers you've got from white and that sort of thing. And this is a serious house. The 2/3 first strike is actually an insane blocking body as well,
yeah,
because it just stops any of their 2 toughness creatures from attacking in, which is a lot. There
yeah.
are a lot of things with 2 toughness.
Yeah, I mean, just looking at the cards I have on my screen right now, I'm looking at a 5 cost card that has 2 toughness, a 3 that has 2 toughness, another 3 that potentially has 2 toughness, cards that have to work to get over 2 toughness.
Yeah.
Uh, a lot of things that this can block profitably, and God forbid you have any kind of way to put a creature on the battlefield at instant speed. Uh, it becomes difficult for your
Yeah,
opponent to block.
that becomes very difficult. There is I think it's a higher percentage than normal of flash creatures in this set. Like it feels like there's quite a few.
And probably a few activated abilities to put them on the battlefield as well.
That's also very true.
But yeah, I expect that if you're in any way aggressive, this card's going to be an absolute slam dunk, somewhere between a 6 or a 7. And if you're not, it's still going to be a playable card, just a little worse on the back foot than it is on the front foot. So you'll know when you want this, and when you want it, it's going to be really good. And when you don't want it, well, you probably shouldn't be
Yes.
playing red-white.
Yeah. I would be happy to first pick this card, but I don't think it's the sort of thing of it might not be better than rares is
Yeah,
the thing.
I agree.
Yeah.
I mean, giving any 4 mana 2/3, even with first strike, like a super duper high grade, can be a little difficult, you know.
It is, yeah.
Ooh, but here's one that I think we have our contender for easy first pick here. This is Hero of the Dunes, 3 white and a black for 3/2. Enters the battlefield, gets you something back, an artifact or creature with mana 3 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield, and it also buffs all of your small things that are 3 or less for +1/+0. So,
The fact that this doesn't say non-token creatures you control with mana
Yeah.
value 3 or less, this card is crazy actually.
and there's a whole bunch of there's at least a few cards that come with another creature stapled onto them, don't they?
Yeah, lots of them, and a lot
Yeah.
of them also do it on ETB. So you ETB it, sacrifice it to something, you play out the Hero of the Dunes, you get them back, you get another ETB. It's kind of crazy.
And you don't even need that much of a bonus to make this card good. Like, what are you gonna do? Not play creatures that cost 3 or less? Something's gonna
Yeah,
be in the
like
graveyard.
exactly. There are a lot of cards. There are a lot of cards in the set that cost a lot of mana, but it's very easy to just ignore them and let other people pick them around you, and just ride the lane of just picking cheap creatures the whole time. It's very good.
Yeah, I think even if this card didn't have the creatures you control with mana value 3 or less, get +1/+0, and even if it didn't say return target artifact, even if it just got creatures, I would still think this card was at least good, like at least
It's a
playable.
2-for-1. Yeah,
Yeah,
it is at minimum a 2-for-1.
but like you can
It's
get
great.
artifacts back. It pumps your team a lot of it, because a high
Hmm.
concentration of your cards are going to be twos and threes. Most of your creatures in limited should be twos and threes. Like around half or more of them usually are.
Especially if you're playing white and black.
Yeah.
Like I can see if you're in green, you can go a bit higher up the curve. But here, white and black, you really want to be low down.
Yeah, it seems like it's hard for it to miss, and I'm content giving this one a 7. And then I haven't even looked at like the exhaustive list of artifacts in the set, but I have to feel like there's just some borderline oppressive things you can bring back with this. And if there's any way to get this back from your graveyard, it just seems like it's
Yeah,
going to be annoying to play against, maybe.
it could be. It could definitely be annoying. Like it can be. It feels bad to have. I spent my removal spell to get rid of this creature that it wasn't too big of a problem, but it just had to go. And then they're just like, oh yeah, 5-drop Hero of the Dunes, bring it back. Hell yeah.
And
Okay.
probably with a bonus.
And with a bonus, yes.
Ooh, here's an interesting one. This is Junkyard Genius. This is 3 mana for a 2/2. When it enters the battlefield, you get a Power Stone token, and you can sacrifice a creature or artifact for its exact casting cost, 3 mana, and give your other creatures +1/+0, menace, and haste until end of turn. This is a weird one. I don't.
This is, yeah.
I don't
I
know.
don't know. I don't think this is a draft card necessarily. It's certainly like, at minimum, it's a 3-mana 2/2 that makes you a Power Stone, and then it gives you the opportunity for an Alpha Strike later. That's good. Um, but I just don't think it's gonna be quite the powerhouse as some other cards here. Certainly not in limited.
Yeah,
I can see this doing a lot with blood tokens or something, but
so
yeah.
you can use the Power Stone that it gives you to pay for the 1 in the activated ability, and you can use that as sacrifice fodder. But the problem is, usually with abilities like this, what you want to be sacrificing is either creatures that will give you a benefit or your opponent's creatures. And
Yeah,
do you know off the top of your head if there are any active treason or threaten effects in the set?
there is.
There's
There is
one.
one. There is one,
Yeah.
as far as I
Is
know.
it 4 mana or 3 mana?
4 mana.
Yeah, they've been making them 4 mana lately. They know. They
They've been making
know.
them 4 mana. I think you also make a Power Stone with it. I
Yeah,
think
that makes enough sense.
we'll see it when we get to red.
But
Maybe.
yeah, I mean, between, so like if you end up with this card and the active treason, sure, like you can do some stuff, but that's 7 mana, and the Power Stone that you make off the active treason comes untapped, and this one comes
Yeah.
untapped. It seems like if you want to sacrifice your opponent's creatures with an active treason, there's got to be a better way than this.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah. So I'm on a 4.5 for this. I think it's either going to be somewhere between filler to good in its own deck. Like I just feel like if you're in black red, this is the kind of enabler that you're like, yeah, I'll take it. I could be wrong though. We'll see.
I think it's fine.
Yeah.
I'm not super excited about this card, but if I'm in red black, I'm perfectly happy with this card.
Ooh, well, here's one that I think both of us will agree is kind of goofy. This is Skyfisher
Yeah.
Spider.
Hmm.
This is 4 mana for a 3/3 with a reach. Not the greatest stats, but don't worry, it makes up for that. When it enters the battlefield, you sacrifice a creature, and when you do, destroy target non-land permanent. So it has more text
And
after that.
yeah,
But if
but that's
if
the
it was
important
just
one.
that, I would still play this
This
card.
is an incredibly goofy card.
Yeah, like
I have no idea. I know reach is good. I like a 3/3 with reach. I'm pretty happy with that. But yeah,
so
yeah,
this is
I'm not so sure about this one.
this is weird because it's a 4 mana creature, but you probably don't want to play it on turn 4.
No.
This is a creature that you're going to play a little bit later into the game, or God forbid, top deck it
Yeah.
later, and your opponent's going to go, "Ugh, all right, my best thing dies, their worst thing dies,"
Yeah.
and not
If
just
you have
like
a
thing. It's you trade a creature, your worst one, for any non-land permanent they control.
Mhm.
So this could hit enchantments. This could hit non-creature artifacts, or if it
there
is
are
a
some
creature, you can of course get that as well.
yeah, there are some very big important, engine pieces, specifically artifacts that are really powerful, and a lot of them come down on 4. So if you're on the draw, they play their engine piece on 4. You drop this down, sacrifice a 1/1, and blow it up. That's a really good trade.
Yeah, and then you just have a Skyfisher Spider hanging back, and this
Yeah,
is
now
this
you've
is
got a
just like enter
3/3.
the battlefield trigger. So if you can
Yeah,
find any way to
there's
get this back or some kind of way to blink it, it I just know my opponent's going to play this a lot of the time that I'm playing against black green, and I'm going to go, okay, all right. Well, if I don't apply some pressure here, they're just going to keep that 1/1 around forever, and they're going to blow up my whatever it is with their Skyfisher Spider. And then on the back end, you have some life gain if you want to exile it from your graveyard. And the exile clause from your graveyard means that they want it to be like a choice. Do you want to keep it in your graveyard to possibly bring it back, or do you want the life gain? And I haven't even looked to see
yeah.
how many ways there are to get it back from your graveyard because it's not an artifact; it's just a spider. But uh, I,
There are a couple ways, but
I don't want my opponent
not
to get this
too
back.
many. Yeah, not too many.
I don't want to see 2 of these in one game. I really don't.
That's very true. That is very true.
Like even if you're trading like your real like 2 mana creature for their 4 or 5 mana creature, you're still probably feeling good about that.
Yeah.
Especially with the way that some of the creatures in the set have like activated abilities and enter the battlefield abilities. You're going to have some stuff with ETBs that have already triggered and you don't want it anymore, and they're going to have stuff that has an activated ability that you don't want them to activate, and you could trade that stuff in easy. With that in
Yeah.
mind, I think I'm giving this card a 7.
Okay. Yeah.
I think this is a reason to be inside of black green. Not only is it a creature, but it also is a removal spell on that stick. So it's
Absolutely.
hard to make that miss.
Yeah.
Third Path Iconoclast is next. This card is also very goofy. This is 2 mana for a 2/1, and you get a 1/1 colorless soldier artifact creature token whenever you cast a non-creature spell.
I am so high on this card. I think this card is incredible. Um, you like Young Pyromancer? What if Young Pyromancer made tokens that had relevant types? Like Soldier, incredibly relevant. Artifact, incredibly relevant. Both times, like this card, like sure, it's a 2-drop.
Yeah.
In it costs 2 colors. It's gonna be hard to do, but if you're playing, if you're playing that 9/8 split, it's worth it.
Yeah.
I really think it's worth it.
Yeah, this is one of those cards that you don't have to play on turn 2. You could play it on like turn 5 and then immediately get your value by casting any random
Yeah.
spell.
Yeah, you can hold it with a cantrip and just be like, okay, yep, turn 4, this into, surveil and
And this just says non-creature
keep
spell,
going.
so you don't even have to have like an opt or an impulse or a
Yeah.
removal spell. There's a lot of
This
artifacts in the
counts on
set
your
that you can play.
non-creature
Yeah.
artifacts. Yeah, counts on your non-creature artifacts. Any of your like auras, enchantments you're playing. This is a really good ability.
Yeah. So 1/1s as just as their power and toughness, they're not incredible, but they do add up. And if you get
Yeah,
2 triggers out of this card, you're very, very, very happy. And if you can
yeah,
ever get any more than that, you're extremely happy. I think just as a 2 mana 2/1 that could possibly get you 1 or 2 triggers, this card would be a 6. But the potential for you
yeah,
to get possibly more value is what brings this card to like 6.5, almost 7 range for me. You do need a deck to support it, but I don't think it's going to be a super duper big issue in blue red. You'll know when you want this card and when this card is going to be extremely good for you. Oh, there's a small issue. We have disconnected. Give me just a moment here. So I'm content with a 6.5 or so. Veering towards possibly first pickable. I guess it depends on how the format irons out and how many of those like non-creature artifacts people are picking up. But this card is clearly quite strong.
Yeah, if you like doing blue-red spells matter, I think this is like if this is an archetype that you know and you feel confident in and you enjoy, like this is first pickable material because it will pay you off and it will be absolutely worth it the whole time. Just need to make sure you pick up some soldier synergy cards because it is relevant. It's very relevant.
Next up is a Yochin Dissident, which is 2 mana for a 1/1. And, well, 2 mana 1/1, usually we want something pretty hefty to make that worth. And I think we get it. I think we get quite a bonus.
I think so, yes.
I think the key is that it doesn't say non-token.
Yes, exactly. So it's going to be triggering off all of your power stones.
Mm-hmm.
If you have a third path iconoclast with it, every time you cast a non-creature spell, it's an artifact. It's a 3-color deck, but it's probably not going to happen.
That's a 4-color deck.
Oh, Chucks, there's a 4-color deck. Yeah, okay, that's not happening.
If you make this work, your opponent should concede out of a pity.
Yeah, exactly. You'll win one game out of 1,000, and that one game will feel amazing. But yeah, no, I think this card is really good actually, and I think it's gonna pay you off for doing the things that the set already wants you to do.
Yeah.
Like there's so much support for throwing in artifacts, no matter what. And, being able to spread those counters around as well. Not just being able to put them on the Dissident, you can actually put them, somewhere that they are necessary as well.
Yeah. So I think the thing that kind of immediately comes to mind is like Champion of the Parish.
Absolutely, yeah. It has very strong Champion of the Parish vibes.
Except it triggers off of a lot more things than I think Champion of the Parish does.
Yes.
As far as this set goes, there's just a lot of artifacts around. So
a lot of artifacts.
This is 2 mana, and it is a 1/1, but I think you're going to be able to make it a lot more impressive than that enough of the time. It is a sink or swim card, and it's definitely not the best top deck in the late game, but the fact that you could put the counters on other things means that you don't have to start building up from this 1/1 on up. You can put it on your best thing and really start to go to town, even if this shows up on like turn 6 or turn 10 or something. And for that reason, I want to give it a 6.
Yeah.
I think it is a build around.
I fully agree.
Go ahead.
I fully agree. It absolutely is a build around. Like once you see this, you're like, okay, yeah, we'll start putting together a whole bunch of stuff.
Yeah, and I think it does only belong in like a pretty narrow archetype as far as like you want to be the beatdown, you want to be trying to build up big creatures or like a mass of them. Possibly start throwing those counters onto big things later in the game. You need to be in a specific lane and knowing that you're in that lane, and then I think this card is a card that you want. I don't think this is quite first pickable. I think it is just barely not there, but I think it's definitely strong. Ooh,
yeah.
But our next card is a one I think is definitely first pickable, and this is Yochin Tacticsian. This is 4 mana for 3/4, and other soldiers you control get +1/+1.
This is one of the best soldiers cards here. And obviously, so lords are always powerful. We were talking about a partial lord earlier and like singing its praises. And there are a lot of soldiers in this set. A lot.
A lot of those 1/1 tokens are soldiers. We have just a lot of different ways to get those tokens. And then there's a good number of creatures, obviously, in blue and white that are soldiers.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm just going to quickly do a quick check. Yeah. So there are 41 cards in this set that either are tokens or that either are soldiers or create soldiers. And oftentimes they will come with an additional soldier, there are lots of them around, and a lot of them also have relevant combat abilities, making that +1/+1 a lot more relevant than it otherwise could be.
Yeah, I think this is one of those cards where you're going to see your opponent like play a 2 and a 3 and then like attack with their 2 and 3 on turn 4. And you're going to think, do I want to trade? I don't want to trade. I like my creatures. and then
Yeah.
and then they'll play this at some point later in the game and you'll be like, oh, well, now I can't trade for those creatures. Now they just trade
Yes.
with bigger things. Now I have to blow up
Exactly.
their 4 mana uncommon. And
Giving a creature,
yeah,
giving a creature +1/+1 is often equivalent to it. It's slightly
it's a
less
lot.
than
It's
1 mana. It's
yeah,
slightly less than 1 mana in the casting cost, and it's really like that is such a big upgrade that it really is impactful.
yeah. I mean, +1/+0 is cool, especially on tokens. +0/+1
Yeah,
is fine, but +1/+1, it's not
it does
weak.
it
That's
all.
for sure.
It does it all. Yeah.
And for that card, I think I am content to give that a 7. I think if you pick this
Yeah.
early and just start cramming soldiers, there's a lot of good soldiers, strong ones, a lot of cool activated abilities, a lot of stuff going on. And you're playing blue-white, so you can always just pick up some random flyers. I
Hmm.
don't think there's a way to make this deck just awful, just unplayable. And this
No.
card's one that makes an already probably fine deck much better.
Yes.
And of course, the fail case is that it's a 4 mana 3/4. Oh no.
It's fine. It's fine. Yeah.
So there aren't any common multicolor cards. Which color
No.
would you like to start first?
Um, Wooburg order. Start at white.
Yeah, works for me. All right,
Perfect.
we'll start with commons. And first up, we have Aeronaut Cavalry, which is 5
Yes.
mana, 3/4 flying, put a counter on another soldier. Notably, it doesn't say just target
Yeah.
soldier, it has to be another soldier.
Yeah. Can't be itself. So
Yeah.
it's fine.
Yeah.
Like, hopefully by 5 mana you will have another out. If you don't, like, you're already in such a bad position. So I see it as 5 mana. It's bringing 4/5 worth of stats with it, and it's a flyer. Flyers win games.
Yeah. You'll know if this is the kind of card that you're really looking to play, and that is to say, almost any kind of deck that's looking to be down in the sky or has some kind of soldier synergies. If you don't have the soldiers, this card is going to be obviously not very good. If you do have the soldiers, it's at least going to be passable, if not pretty solid.
Yes,
For that reason, I want to give it a 5. I think this is
I
a
think
good
so.
card.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It's a perfectly reasonable comment.
And you can just look through your deck real quick, and if you don't have the soldiers to justify it, obviously it's probably not going to make the cut. And on Arena, you can just see it on the right-hand side of your screen. It tells it for you.
Yeah,
Uh,
sure can.
Next up is Airlift Chaplain. This is 3 mana, another flying creature. This one is a 1/1, and it has a pretty cool line of text. When it enters the battlefield, mill 3 cards. You get a planes or a creature with mana value 3 or less from among them. If you don't put one of those cards in your hand, you just put a 1/1 counter on it instead. So,
So notably, this is a May ability. So even if you mill a planes, you don't have to take it back. You can just
yeah.
have a 3 mana 2/2, and flyers win games. Like Windrake. It's not much, but it really does more than it should.
Yeah. I mean, people were playing,
And
what was it, was it a gnome or a dwarf from Forgotten Realms? It was a 3 mana 2/1 and a Druid card?
draw a card, draw and gain life. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, that got power crept in Streets of New Capenna where they gave it flying. So 3 mana 2/1 flyer. When it enters, draw a card, gain life. That card is incredibly powerful. Airlift Chaplain, because it doesn't innately have 2/1, it's not as powerful, but because you can choose between, oh, I would really like that card, or I guess I'd rather just have a 2/2. I think Airlift Chaplain is incredibly good. I think this is a high order pick if I'm in white. It's not like a first pick out of the pack because it doesn't create synergy by itself, but it is just a really strong card.
Yeah, I think the thing that I compare to is that card and Militia Bugler. And
Yes,
Militia Bugler is
absolutely.
a very strong card. It was an uncommon for a
Yes.
reason, and people would just load up on as many of those as they could get their hands on.
Yeah.
Of course, that
No
had
longer
to.
an uncommon though.
Oh, is it common
It's
now?
now it's now common. Yeah, it got downshifted. Paupers all over
Sheesh.
it. Paupers
I
all
mean,
over that card though.
hell yeah, the card's really good.
It is. It really is.
So you don't get the 2/2 up front with this one. And I do like that it doesn't, or I don't like that it doesn't just like start as like a 1/2 or a 2/1. But I guess
Yeah.
I'll probably still end up playing this a pretty good amount of the time. Like you can
Yeah.
get
I see.
a 3 mana 1/1 with flying with possibly a creature attached, and if you don't do that or get a land, you can get a 1/1 counter as a
Yeah.
consolation prize.
Yeah. I see it as the opposite way around. I see it as a wind drake, so a 3 mana 2/2 flyer, but you can give it a negative counter to draw a card out of your graveyard out of 3 cards. You can do that is the important part. Like the fact that this has the choice and you can choose which one is better for you in that moment makes this card just absolutely crazy good, I
Yeah,
think.
I think that speaks to like more of what your deck's going for. Like if you're the Sky Beatdown, maybe you're gonna take that
Yeah.
1/1 counter to try and get them dead faster. If you're just looking to grind things out, or say if you're like black white, you're probably just like want that creature. Like imagine you mill like just any random 3 mana value creature. That's another thing to
Oh,
sacrifice, another thing that possibly puts more stuff in your graveyard, or can maybe even get the Airlift Chaplain back. I have to imagine there's like a something with an
yeah.
activated ability that does that.
Maybe not at 3 mana, I can't quite remember, but we'll see.
Yeah, I like it. I would put this at a to start 5. I want to see how it plays before I'm confident giving it higher. I don't think
Yeah.
it's going to go lower though. I guess we'll see though.
Yeah.
Ooh, Deadly Riposte is an instant. 3 damage to a tapped creature and you gain 2 life.
This might not be the best card in the set for you to be picking. It is one of the best cards in the set for you to be thinking about.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you need to be thinking about, okay, if my opponent is playing white, this is a card that they probably have at least one of because
Yeah.
it's so versatile in what it can do.
Yeah, I've definitely had a lot of games of Limited where I like attack on turn 3 into their 2 untap mana is a question. Like, do I want to
Yes.
be hit by Gideon's Reproach or whatever the newest version of that is?
Exactly.
And sometimes the answer is no. Definitely good to know that this card exists. As far as where it goes in power level, creatures are going to end up tapped. That's just the nature of Limited. Uh,
Yeah.
and they're
The fact that
and they're
this
going to have
can
3 or less toughness sometimes.
Yeah. The fact that this can disrupt your opponent's, like, if they have a creature engine or something with a tap ability and they're using it every turn to get some value, the fact that this can get in there and disrupt that is really important.
Yeah, and 2 life as a little bonus is not bad. I never
It's
mind having a
nice.
little bit of extra life gain on top of my cards. I
Yeah.
think that's why it does 3 instead of 4, because I would expect usually this to deal 4 for 2 mana. But I think you'll still play it.
Yes.
I think this is I think this is
I
a
believe so.
5.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think this is a conditional in multiple ways removal. But I think it's definitely not bad. Like, you're going to play this some amount of the time, and your creatures will get destroyed by it some amount of the time.
Yes. That's the thing. I think you just this is what I think we bring this up because you do need to think about it. It is important
Yeah.
to winning games.
You can't play infinite of them, but you're going
No.
to play, like, the first probably 1 or 2 at least,
Yeah.
if you're playing white.
I mean, if I draft 4 of these, I'm probably playing 3, I think.
Yeah, that's probably fair. Disenchant is next.
Big. This is so big. Gigantic. This card is I think this card is first pick potential. 2 mana instant destroy target artifact or enchantment. There are 10 mana artifacts in this set. Like, it's never going to matter, but there is always going to be a target. The problem with disenchants is sometimes there just isn't a target. It's always going to have a target.
Yeah. So I don't think it deserves a sideboard grade at all for that purpose. I do
No,
think it is
this is main
almost
board.
certainly a main deckable card.
Yeah.
I think there might be games where you might side it out, but I also think
Yes,
that there's just
yes.
going to be a decent amount of the time where this. So I think this is actually a lot more similar to Deadly Riposte than a lot of people might think. Like, it is a conditional removal
Hmm.
spell that's an instant for 2 mana, much like Deadly Riposte is. It just hits a different subset of cards that have some overlap.
Yes.
I think you probably are going to be playing this a little bit less often than Deadly Riposte, unless the format is just utterly riddled with people trying to cast those big, gigantic things. In which case, Disenchant becomes a card that you definitely are going to be picking quite highly.
Yeah. I would say even I yeah. I would say that it's main deckable. I think I'm going to be putting it into my main deck every time, basically. I might side it out in some matchups where it's less relevant, say against someone who's built like a soldier's deck or something. But there's but that would only be because there's only a couple targets in their deck because they're still going to have artifacts.
Yeah,
Every single deck, like no matter how you draft, unless you are specifically trying to meme on people, they're gonna have artifacts in them.
yeah. I don't know what grade to give it, so I'm just not going to give it one. I can't wait to see how it plays, and whether or not this is a format where I'm like, oh, goody, I can play 2 Disenchants main, or if I'm going to be not too happy about that. It's
Mm,
always cool when sideboard cards that are generally sideboard cards like this one find a way to make it to main.
yeah,
Next up is Lauren's Escape. 1 mana, save an artifact or a creature, hexproof and indestructible, scry 1. This is this is a weird case of a card being much better in constructed than it is in limited for a reason that surprises me.
yes,
Like, usually for combat tricks in limited, what you want is to get like a bonus in power and toughness so you survive the combat. Like +2/+2
mm,
and indestructible from Dominaria United. That was an incredible trick. It's very, very annoying. I saw it all the time. It was one of the best cards in white. Just save whatever creature you have. It trades with almost anything, and it has
yeah,
indestructible and lifelink.
absolutely,
This doesn't give you the power and toughness bonus, so it only makes your trades no longer trades, but it also has the bonus of stopping removal spells, and it also hits artifacts, and it only costs 1 mana.
it's yeah. I mean, Scry one is worth like a third of a card or something
Yeah.
to me,
Well, the later the game, the
so
more
it gives you
value
a
it
little
gets
bit.
you. So, like on like turn 2 through 5, it's not so good, and then by the time
Yeah,
you reach like turn 12, you're like, well, this land is literally nothing. I'm basically just drawing a card.
yeah,
So yeah, it is. I don't think I should factor that into my grade for this one too much. How about just
no.
on the merits of the combat trick itself? Where do you think this sits? Because I think it is okay.
I'm not a big fan personally. Um, I think you can do better. Is basically what I'm saying. The fact that you can give an artifact hexproof and indestructible is relevant, but only if you have something, if you have an engine to protect, basically.
Yeah, I think I'm starting this at a 4. I think this is a playable trick, and then I think
Yeah,
time will tell whether or not this ends up being as annoying as like dive down or that the card from DMU that was 1 mana give something hexproof that
yeah,
blue had. But I could see it reaching those heights, but I don't know. I think right now I'm content just giving it a 4.
yeah.
Oof. Well, this one's an interesting one. Speaking of combat tricks, this is Military Discipline. It's an enchantment. Gives +1/+0 permanently and first strike until end of turn to the thing you enchant, and it has flash.
This is the combat trick that I want in my deck.
Yeah,
Like
this can
that first
win
strike.
you a lot of
Yeah,
combats.
that first strike is a removal spell basically, and permanently giving a creature +1/+0. It's great.
Yeah, like when I have 1 mana untapped and my opponent plays anything pre-combat and attacks, this is probably going to kill the thing they attack with. And then if you're on offense and they're on defense, it's very easy to sneak this in to make a trade no longer a trade,
Yeah.
and then play something second main because it's very mana efficient. I think I like this card
Mhm.
more than Lorne's Escape, but I also think it probably has a different function and would be in a different deck.
Yes, the fact that this can't protect an artifact and on like this doesn't protect from a removal spell. In fact, it gets a lot worse with the
Yes.
removal spell.
Yeah, I mean, this is just basically just a classic combat trick. No hexproof, no
Absolutely.
indestructible, just a bonus and like first strike. It's practically red.
Yeah, practically.
In fact, I'm pretty sure there is a first strike plus something plus 0 trick somewhere in the set. Somewhere.
We'll have to see.
Yeah. But I think if you're looking for a trick, this is a good one. And if you're not looking for a trick, well, obviously you're not going to pick it. And for that reason, I'll give it in most decks a 4.5.
Yeah.
Next up is Phalanx Vanguard, 2 mana 2/2 with Vigilance, and it gets +1/+0 whenever an artifact, not non-token, enters the battlefield under your control.
I wasn't the biggest fan of this card. Vigilance is a great keyword, but on a 2/2, it's a lot less powerful.
Yeah, I think you're never going to be like, wow, this card sucks. Like bare minimum, 2 mana 2/2 with Vigilance and any kind of additional ability is usually at least a playable card. I think this is sitting around the 4 range for me. This is like a 17 to 23rd card filler level. I don't think you're going to want to ever play first pick this. I don't think you're going to probably want to pick it in your first 5 or 6 cards. This is a card that you're hoping to wheel.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Next up is Power Stone Engineer. This is similar to the Phalanx Vanguard, but it's 2/1, and you just get a Power Stone token when it dies. So no Vigilance, but it has that sort of artifact sub-theme kind of built in, and that enables you for it. I think I like this card more.
I like this card a lot more. Yeah.
Yeah.
You play this card on 2, you block their 2-drop or something, or even trade off with 1-drop. You ramp up to 4 mana for the next turn, maybe. I think this card does a lot, and any small ways to just get a Power Stone token, I think, are pretty strong.
Yeah. So this is a 2 mana creature that gives you something that at least has some kind of application. I think in specifically like Black-White, the ability to have this card give you 2 different things to sacrifice or kind of fiddle around with is going to be kind of a big deal. So I think I think this is definitely a better 2 than Phalanx Vanguard, with the only caveat being that Phalanx Vanguard is a soldier, and this is not. So as far as soldiers go, cool, you got one there. And as far as artifact sub-themes go, I think this is going to be a card that's a lot more important in the format, and I'm expecting I'm going to be playing this a lot more often than Phalanx Vanguard. Not being able to block the 1/1 tokens is not the best, but you're not going to have all of your creatures have 1 toughness, and if all you have is a Power Stone Engineer, you have a lot more problems than whether or not the 1/1s are attacking you.
Yeah.
Next up, we have a removal spell. This is a Prison Sentence, 3 mana. You get Scry 2 when it enters the battlefield, and enchanted creature can't attack or block, and its activated abilities can't be activated. So that's good. The activated abilities clause is very important, especially in the set.
Yeah.
There's been a lot of sets past where not having that activated abilities clause has made pacifism style cards just absolutely miserable. But this has that, so.
Yeah, especially because a lot of the bigger cards also come with some sort of activated ability or some sort of mana sink that you would want to be using as well. Yeah, I think Prison Sentence is a really important card. I think, as far as I know, it's the only pacifism in the set, but it is really good. I think.
Yeah.
Scry 2, I mean, I said before, Scry 2 is around a third of a card to me. And
Scry 2's a lot better than Scry 1. Like, so much better.
exactly. You see 2 lands on top, you're like, not a chance. We get those straight out of here. Um, and yeah, I love it. I think it's great.
I think Scry 2 is a lot closer to one card than Scry 1 is to one third of a card. And not just like it's two thirds. I think Scry 2 is practically just drawing a card as far as applications go. Even in the early game, if you end up playing this on turn 3, there's a good chance you're going to bottom at least one of those cards.
Yeah.
Because you get to see the other. And in fact, there's a good argument that you should probably be scrying to the bottom a lot more often than you usually do. But that's getting into magic theory, so I guess we'll just
we can
give it a
do
grade
that
and
another
proceed.
day, maybe. Yeah, we can do that another day.
I would say prison sentence is like a 5.5. And the only reason I hesitate to just straight up give it a 6 is because I don't know how many, as time goes on, we'll see, of course, how many ways there are to get creatures out from underneath this. Like ways to either bounce, sacrifice, or flicker. I know that black and I want to say there's a couple and a few other colors have ways to sacrifice them. But that's just your normal thing. It's still a 3-mana removal spell, and you're still going to play it.
Exactly.
Next up is Recommission. You get an artifact or creature with mana value 3 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield, and if it's a creature, it gets an additional +1/+1 counter.
Yeah. This card is playable. I wouldn't want to run too many of them, because drawing it early really doesn't do a whole deal for you, but later in the game when you've got a bit more selection, you've got a bigger graveyard, I think Recommission is pretty good.
Yeah, I think you need to be looking for a very specific card. Like, I think you want to be aiming for a very specific thing in your graveyard if you're going to be playing this. Otherwise, I would just play the creature instead. I guess if you have ways to mill yourself, then maybe a card like this gets a little bit better. And when I say ways to mill yourself, I specifically mean like random things built into creatures, because there is an upper limit on how many non-creatures you can play before graveyard creature synergies become much worse. And this card does occupy a slot. So
it does.
This card immediately like went down a good bit just based on that, but I think it's not weak. You know, you could get something that's 3 or less from your graveyard, and it also boosts up the creature. I think this is like a
exactly.
I think this is almost a build around, and I'm not really seeing what it's trying to build around towards. And for that reason, I want to give it like a 4, possibly a little bit less.
I'm feeling like it's a 4 for me. It's not a first pick, and I don't think I could just throw it into any deck and I could guaranteed make that deck better. So I don't think I could make it a 5 necessarily. Well, that's not the definition of a 5, but I don't think it's a 5. I think a 4 is the right number for this.
Yeah, I think it helps if you like think about the lines of play surrounding this card. So there's 2 different ways to get the card into your graveyard. Either you play it and it dies, or you mill it through some other means. So you're at least waiting until like turn somewhere between 3 through like 6 to get the thing inside your graveyard. And then somewhere between turn 3 and turn 6, your reward is you get that small thing back on turn 3 through turn 6, possibly with a 1/1 counter.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I don't know if there's enough 2s and 3s that I value enough to really want them that late in the game. I guess there are specific uncommons, like the one that throws 1/1 counters around whenever you play artifacts. I think that one would be a good one to get back. But as it stands, that's like a very specific corner case. I think I'm starting at 4, and I think it only gets worse from there. Next up is Survive.
I'm happy. Yeah.
Go ahead.
Sorry. I'm happy having 1, and that's it.
Next up is Survivor of Corliss. 1/1 first strike. You can exile it from your graveyard to scry 2.
It's filler.
Soldiers.
It's filler.
It's
a soldier. It has first strike. You know, giving it +1 is very good. But it's filler. Like,
See, I don't
It's
even
fine.
like. You really need a way to modify this thing, or else that 1/1 stat line is just not enough for me. I don't think I'm content to
Exactly.
play a card that's best quality as it holds back not good creatures and like the occasional two or three. It and just holds
Exactly.
back. Like, if you attack someone with this, they just take it. They take one. Oh no!
Yeah.
And then the graveyard
No,
ability
this
is
is not.
super medium. This is bordering on three for me. Like, I don't even know if I want this as my 23rd card. I think I would almost rather play a vanilla 2/2 for two,
Yeah.
because that
I
at
think
least
this
trades
is.
with
I
twos.
Yeah, unless I'm looking to do like mono white,
Yeah.
I think this card is bordered out most of the time.
Yeah, you need a lot of things to go right to convince me to play this card.
Yeah.
Next up is Union of the Third Path. 3 mana instant, draw a card, then you gain life equal to the number of cards in your hand. The Fabled White Card Draw.
Yeah. Who'd
Um,
have thought? It's not good.
it's not
I
good.
strongly dislike this card. It's really bad.
Like,
Yeah.
they found a way to
Like
put
this
draw a
card is
card.
just life gain. It's literally just life gain. Like it's not card positive.
No, it's
I
card
this
neutral
would not
life
be my
gain.
this would not be my 23rd card. I'm never
This
drafting
is
this card because I mean the only way that I would draft this card is if the set had a gain X life mechanic like in M20 or something. This doesn't have it. It's not worth it. It's not good. Don't draft this card. It's a trap.
okay. So, if for some reason they had Thassa's Oracle in the Mystical Archive slot,
Oh,
okay,
okay.
hear me out.
Okay. All right. Yeah.
Then I would take the 20 of these that go around the table that nobody picks, and the Thassa's
So you're gonna
Oracle.
pay. So you're gonna pay 60 mana to draw through your deck. Is that right?
Well, I also have my draw for the turn. You see, we're
Okay.
getting,
Sorry. Sorry. Okay. Only 30 mana. I see. Yeah.
yeah.
That sure is a choice.
Then I would go 1/3 and drop. Yeah, that'd be it.
Yeah,
That'd be my
absolutely. I mean,
1/3.
you live the dream, but
Yeah.
the dream is not great.
I don't really know what they were trying to accomplish with this card. I guess
No, I don't
you
know.
can play it as a life gain card in like constructed formats that is card neutral, but I think white especially just has better ways to gain life. Just good creatures that have lifelink.
Entirely honestly, I have no idea why this card exists. I don't see the purpose of it, and maybe one of our viewers can let us know.
Yeah, this is a
How
unsupported
are you
archetype if
using
I've
this
ever seen
card?
one.
Yeah, how are you using Union of the Third Path? Please let us know.
I'm gonna see my opponent play this, and I'm gonna go. Okay, cool. Anyway, pass priority.
Yeah.
Uh, ooh. Now we went from a very boring card that isn't very good to a very interesting card. This is Warlord's Elite. 2 and a white, 4/4. As an additional cost to cast it, tap 2 untapped artifacts, creatures, and/or lands you control.
I love this card. I think this card is super cool. At worst, it's a 5 mana 4/4. That's basically the worst case scenario. Is okay. I have to wait for 5 lands, then I can cast it.
So what was the name
Um,
of that 4/4 with vigilance from
4/4
Dominaria
vigilance
United?
reduces it. Yeah, and it
Yeah,
reduces its cost by 1 for each creature you control.
yeah,
That card ended up performing very well for me.
yeah.
I was very happy with that.
And this feels like a
Warlord's Elite
different
is
version of
worse.
that.
Yeah, I feel like Warlord's Elite is worse, but it does mean, I mean, if you play a 1 drop, then you play a 2 drop, you play Warlord's Elite on 3.
Yeah.
You've got a 4/4. It's pretty good.
And then, of course, you can always just play it out for 5 mana. Yeah, just pay the iron price.
Exactly. I think, yeah, I don't think this is quite as good as the one from Dominaria United,
I agree.
but I do think that this card is super interesting, and you can do a lot of cool stuff with
Yeah,
it.
I mean, the ability to tap like Power Stone tokens, I think is what
Yeah.
what makes me impressed with this the most, because there are going to be occasionally a couple of those laying around, and later in the game you are going to be able to double spell with this sometimes. I think
Yeah.
this is like a 5. I don't know if I would give it a 6, but I think it's definitely not like, I think it is above filler.
I think it's a 5. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think it's a perfectly playable card.
Yeah, it's certainly an interesting design, if nothing else. I like that they're experimenting with additional costs in that way, and I certainly like that you can also tap lands. Because if it just said tap 2 untapped artifacts or creatures, I would think this card was awful. Just very, very bad.
Yeah.
Next up is Yochin Medic, our last white common. And it's a 3 mana 1/4 with lifelink.
Yeah. It's fine. This is, there's not much to say about it. It's a soldier.
Yeah, it is a
Giving it
soldier.
little buffs. You put a counter on this thing. Lifelink is a good ability. Like we said, life gain's bad before, but lifelink isn't.
Yeah, it's I think see that's the weird thing because 1/4s in particular, they look like they should be able to tussle well, but the problem is nobody ever attacks into the 1/4s unless they have a way to get past them, and you can never attack with the 1/4 because you can't really trade with any of their things that have 2 toughness or more, and they can somehow find a way to make 4 power to block it.
Yeah, they just block it and you gain 1 life.
Yeah.
You're probably better off just holding it back to, hold one of their creatures back.
Yeah, I think this is somewhere between filler, bad filler, and sideboard. And I don't even know which one to give it to.
I think I would place it in sideboard.
Yeah.
Unless you have a lot of strong soldier synergies, or if you're really going for the 3 mana or less strategy, I think this card just doesn't quite tick all the boxes.
Yeah, I think the soldier synergy is the only reason I would even put it in filler. Like that's what I would put it in for. If you don't have the soldier synergies, I think it drops down to 3. And if you really, really need just to like block 1/1s and stuff, I could see maybe siding it in. That's all I got. Not very excited about that one. Next up we have blue.
Yes.
Blue. I looked over some of the blue cards, and I think blue's really good.
I think blue is good. I think a lot of blue strength comes in the uncommons, honestly, but the blue commons here there's a lot of staple effects that you really want to be able to get early.
Speaking of, we'll just start with the first one, Air Marshal. This is 2/1 for 2, and you could pay 3 to give a soldier flying until end of turn, and it is a soldier.
Yeah. So it can either be a flying man itself, or it can give something else flying. Notably, you can use Power Stones to pay for that ability.
Yeah. Or if you only have lands, by the time you hit 6 mana, you can do this to 2 different creatures. They just have to be soldiers. It just feels like if you have any way to interact with your opponent's things with reach or flying, and then you have them at any kind of lowish life total, that this card is going to be the one that they're like, all right, have to keep my life total high, or else Air Marshal's just going to kill me in a few turns.
Yeah, it's a very strong alpha strike. I wouldn't want too many of these, I don't think, because I don't want to be paying 6 mana just for 2/2/1s flying.
Yeah.
So, but having this in your toolbox, having at least one of these that you can draw late game and just jump something over their stuff, very powerful.
Yeah, I think I'm content to put this at like a 4.
Yeah.
If it was just 2 mana 2/1 and you could pay 3 to give it flying, I'd probably put it like a 3.5. But the fact that it can give other things flying, and that really opens up like the late game applications of you drawing it on like turn 10 or whatever and giving a random soldier flying when your opponent didn't think they would have to deal with that, makes it quite a bit better. At least enough to give it a 4.
Yeah.
Next up is Curate. I like this card's design. In the set, however, I don't know yet. Surveil to draw a card.
Yeah. So you can surveil in some unearthed creatures.
Yeah. So that's
notably
useful.
This isn't instant. Yeah, yes. It is useful. Notably, this isn't instant, and
so
blue does have multiple.
Draw your second card effects.
Yeah, so it's draw your second card effect. It's graveyard synergies. You can hold up mana for counter spells as well, or activated abilities at the end of turn curate just as a last option.
And also just
Um,
non-creature spell synergies like the 1/1
exactly
thing we talked about
prowess or
earlier.
making prowess or making some little tokens. I think this card, like, you don't want too many cantrips, but I think you could do a lot with this.
So the baseline for cards like this is always like a 4. Like bare minimum, you're never going to be like, oh, this is an unplayable awful card. I never want to have a card that replaces itself for 2 mana with some bonus. So it
Yeah.
starts at a minimum of 4 and it goes up from there, unless the format's
Yeah.
very very fast. And I don't think this is a very 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 fast format. So I have to imagine that this is at least like a 4 to a 4.5, and I don't think it can do anything but get
Yeah.
better from there.
I would place it as a 4 in that it's not like a staple effect, and I'll take basically as many. Like, I'll take 3 of them. I no, I probably won't. I'll probably take 1 or 2 curates,
Yeah.
but I won't take too many more after that because they do get worse the more you
Yes.
have of them. The first one you cast is amazing. The second one is all right.
Yes. Diminishing returns, if you will. I
Exactly.
think cards like this are always interesting. It's like a tormenting voice is another style of card like this where, maybe the set demands it, but you're never going to be like, I don't ever want to play tormenting voice. If you play it as your 23rd card, you're not going to be upset. And
Exactly.
then in
Yeah.
some sets, randomly, it's just much better. And time will tell which one it is because I don't know for curate. I think it'll be at least a little better than it usually would be.
Yeah.
Next up is Desynchronize. 5 mana instant. Put a non-land permanent on top or the bottom of its owner's library, and the owner gets to make the choice, and you just scry 2. So,
Yeah. It's 5 mana. It's a lot.
yeah.
It's it is a strong removal spell, but there's not much in this set with indestructible. So you're not trying to get around that. Um,
I
you
think,
could, like, this targets, non-creature things, which is great. But if they want it, they'll just put it on top.
yeah.
They lose a draw, but this is 5 mana. I feel like you just need better than that.
Yeah, especially since some of those bigger artifacts actually just have enter the battlefield abilities or things like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just don't know about this one. It looks
It's very
average.
clunky.
I think if this were a more aggressive set and this had like tempo applications, and maybe it does have some tempo applications, that a card like this wouldn't be awful. But I don't think this is going to be
Yeah.
so incredibly oppressive that I have to worry about my opponent
If
desynchronizing something,
yeah.
especially for 5 mana.
If I knew that I could ramp up to this spell in this set, I would be a lot higher on it. But the fact that Power Stones don't affect it, and as far as I haven't seen any treasures or any way for blue to ramp specifically, I just can't see it. You're going to be casting this when you hit 5 lands, which usually isn't on 5. Like, I've usually missed a land drop by the time I get to 5 land.
Yeah,
So
I think I'm on
I'm not super keen.
3.5. I don't even know if this even
I'm on
makes it to
3.
failure.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm on 3 personally.
Yeah. Next up, we have a Falahi Archaeologist. This is a 0/3 for 2, and it does the Falahi thing, I guess, which is mill 3. Oh, but you get a non-creature, non-land card from among the cards into your
Yes.
hand. So, okay, so all the, I guess, Falahi cards
So
mill
they
3,
all,
and
yeah.
they care about a
So they,
particular style of card. And this one is non-creature,
yes.
non-lands.
Yeah.
So
So they all
this
work the same way.
it's artifacts,
Um,
instant
and
sorceries,
it's
enchantments, and planeswalkers that aren't creatures. If any of those
yeah,
would be creatures. And if you don't,
tribal.
you get a counter.
I counter. I
Yeah.
don't like this one as much. I sang the praises of the white one quite a lot. I don't like this one
Yeah.
very much. Like, a
Yeah.
1/4. Do you really want a 1/4? No. Do you like? You really have to be wanting to mill cards, and I think there are just better ways than playing a 2 mana 0/3.
So I think what they were going for here is like Augur Bolus, kind
Yeah,
of, but
yeah.
it doesn't really hit, and
I think I'm looking for more. I'm looking
yeah,
for more.
and also Augur Bolus is rather notoriously referred to as Treader Bolus
Yes,
because he
exactly.
just never gives you what
You
you're looking
love
for.
Exactly. And you play Augur of Bolus, you look at the bottom three cards of your library, 'cause that's where you're putting them.
Yeah.
Um,
So this does put these in your graveyard, but I think one of the bigger problems is that in only 3 cards, especially in most limited decks, you're just not gonna ever hit off this. You're just gonna get the counter. I want to say probably
yeah.
66% of the time or more. Because
Yeah.
even like super duper creature light decks, you're going to be playing about 17 ish lands and then maybe 10 ish creatures. So that's 27 of your cards, which is about 3/4 of your deck. So
Yeah.
milling 3 cards, you're pretty unlikely to hit one of those. So most of the time, this is going to be a 2 mana 1/4, and then only occasionally you're going to get the value. So unless you're in like blue black and you really, really want that mill, or you're seeing something that I'm not, I think this card is uh, filler at the best of times and only gets worse from there.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think this is a. For that reason, I want to give it like a 3.5 ish baseline.
Yeah, I would say so.
Koilos Rock is next. This is 4 and a blue for a flash flying 3/3, and you get a Power Stone token when it hits the battlefield. Uh, hmm. So the thing
It's
about
fine.
flash 5 mana 3/3s is that they're incredibly obvious.
Yeah. Like, yeah.
If your
Holding
opponent
up
does
5
nothing on
mana for
turn
something
5,
is.
yeah, especially on turn 5.
I'm. Yeah, I'm not gonna. I'm not gonna attack into 5 open mana unless it's something very serious.
Yeah.
Like,
See, that's the
unless I
thing.
know.
Like, when your
Yeah.
opponent doesn't play something on turn 5 and they have blue mana, and you think it might be this card, there's still times when you're just gonna attack anyway because you don't care if your random 2 or 3 or maybe 4 trades for this.
Yeah. Especially if I've cast a spell first
Yeah,
and I know that they haven't countered it, I'm like, okay, it's gonna be the rock. Um, yeah.
I just don't think that the 3 toughness on this is pulling enough weight. I think maybe this will cause you to leave back some 2/2s when you otherwise wouldn't. But otherwise, I think ambush blocking something for a trade is not where I want to be, and I don't
No.
think you're going to get to ambush 2/2s enough for this to be good. I'm on filler for this card.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just a flyer. If you're the beatdown, you can do worse than this, I guess, but not that much worse. uh,
Yeah, exactly.
like the one that comes to mind immediately is the white one, the 5 mana 3/4, that gets you a 1/1 counter.
Yeah. Yeah, that one
It just feels so much better than this, and we didn't even like that card.
it is. Yeah, we were like we were very
It's
medium on
fine.
that card and it feels so much better than this.
Yeah.
So
So yeah.
yeah.
Next up is Latnam Adept, which is 4 mana 3/3, and whenever you draw your second card each turn, you get a 1 counter on it. This is
I think this is a good card.
this.
I think this is good.
What was the name of that
You only
octopus?
Oh, a Nyrophage?
Is that the one where whenever you drew a card, it got a 1/1
Draw a
counter?
card, gets a counter, and then when it dies, it spits out. Guys, I think so. I mean, I know. I'm pretty sure it's a Nyro. Just search it up.
Well, either way,
Yep,
this
a
is this
Nyrophage.
this is like
That's it.
the standard set equivalent. You have to draw your
It
second
is.
card, but once you start doing that, you get rewarded relatively well. How many
Yes.
counters do
This
you
is
think you need for this to be worth?
um one for it to be worth, two for it to be good.
Okay, so you're waiting at least 1 turn for the 1 counter.
Yes, most of the time.
Yes, most of the
I
time.
and yeah, I think I know. I'm a big believer. So when I was going through beforehand doing my research and all of that, I became a big believer in this deck.
It's weird. I would
Let
consider you a
them.
quite small believer myself.
Yeah. Well,
I know, because
we'll
you're
have to.
because
We'll have
because
to
you're because
see.
you're not very tall. I'm messing with you.
Yeah. That's good.
Sorry.
No.
That
Good.
was goofy. Continue. You're a big believer.
I'm a big believer in the blue black draw two archetype. I think the like this they've tried this archetype in several sets now, and I think this is the best it's come to. Um, there's a lot of cards. Like I think you need an engine. I think you need to find an engine for it, but there are a lot of those around actually. And I think that it's a lot more possible to do this than it might otherwise seem.
Yeah. I think the format will probably be slow enough that playing a 4 mana 3/3 won't feel that bad. We've already seen a handful of cards like this relative same casting cost and stat line already. And it makes me think that you're never going to be like, oh god, I can't believe I have to play a 4 mana 3/3 and then do something else to make it pass the
Yeah.
vanilla test.
As yeah,
I think
as
this
long
is
as you don't
fine.
attack straight
Yeah.
away. Yeah, as long as you are building this up reasonably quickly, like 3 toughness, there are actually several ways of dealing with a 3 toughness creature in the set in terms of like damage spells. You do need to grow it, but you don't need to grow it very much to get outside of most of it.
Yeah. I think in most sets, without the context of the sub theme of drawing second cards, I would give this a 3.
Oh, I would give this a 2 or 3
This is
in
just bad
other
filler.
sets.
Yeah.
Yeah,
In most
terrible
sets.
filler in other sets.
But
I think in
in this set,
I think
I
it's
think
fine.
will probably be like a 4, maybe possibly better if you have like the absolute best deck for it.
Yeah, I'm thinking it's a 4.
Yeah,
I'm thinking it's a 4. It could go to a 5 if you pick up other cards first, though.
possibly. Machine over Matter is next, and this is an instant, costs 1 less if you cast if you if you control an artifact creature, and then you return a non-land permanent to its owner's hand. So just a bounce spell for 2, and it can be
That's
cheaper.
well for 2. I think this is good. I mean, look at it. I mean, it's basically desynchronized, but your opponent doesn't like miss their next draw.
Yeah.
Basically,
And,
but it only costs 2 mana.
I think that
Like,
that definitely makes it quite a bit better than desynchronize. I think
I think this.
usually you're tacking on like 1 or 2 onto a card for the feeling of drawing a card, and that's what that card gave you. This is
Yeah.
just that, but you don't have to pay 3 additional for the card, and it can even cost 1 less. I like this card a lot more. Does that mean I'm really looking to play it? I don't know. I think I don't really want this effect most of the time, but sometimes I will, and it's nice that it exists. And for that reason, I think you're gonna side it in sometimes.
Yeah, I. Yeah.
Especially against like
It's
green
hard.
fight spells.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
And then if your
Very
opponent has
happy to
like
study it against them.
like combat tricks, this is a pretty good way of getting around those by just bouncing the creature out from
Absolutely.
underneath it.
Yeah.
Especially if you
2
can
for 1.
reliably make it cost 1 mana. Well, in that instance, it would be a 1 for 1 because you're just trading your
Well, if they've
machine
got
over
a.
matter.
Yeah,
for-
but if they're using a combat trick or something,
Yeah.
it's useful.
Yeah, I mean you're trading 1 for 1, but you get more tempo because you traded this and they have to replay their creature.
Yeah.
So for that reason, I like it. I think out of the sideboard, it's going to be pretty strong, and there will be some times where you're going to like maybe main deck it. I think I'm comfortable putting this at sideboard grade, with almost being close to a 4, because I don't think cards like this are miserable. They just have to have their spot in games, and you don't always have those spots.
Yeah.
Next up, we have Mightstone's Animation. This is 4 mana. You draw a card when it enters the battlefield, and you turn any artifact into a 4/4.
I think this is good.
Yeah, I think this is really good.
Yeah. I would expect, at least in the way that I hope to be building decks, I would expect to have at least 1 Power Stone by turn 4. To immediately turn that into a 4/4 that draws a card for me.
Yeah.
I think that's pretty good.
Yeah. I don't think this asks a lot of you. I think there's definitely
No.
a whole lot of artifacts in the set, a whole lot of ways to make them. And if you have any kind of way to reliably play this card, it's going to pay you off big time. 4/4 for 4 with a draw card attached is extremely good. But
Yeah.
this is obviously worse than just that, but like you can make that work. If you're in a deck where you can reliably play this on turn 4, and even if you can't, and it's like turn 6 maybe, you're still going to be very happy with it. I think this card's a 5,
Yeah,
if not possibly higher. I could see this card going a good amount higher than that.
I think so. Yeah,
I
this
really
card has
do.
a very high ceiling.
Retrieval Agent is next. 4 mana, 2/5, and for 2 mana, you can give it +1/-1. You can Flowstone it.
Yeah.
Mm,
It's a lot of mana to make this an aggressive threat, and paying 4 mana for something to mostly keep on the defense. I'm not a big fan of it, if I'm being honest.
yeah, I prefer the 2 mana or 3 mana 2/3 version of this card, like
Yes.
Flowstone Kavu.
Flowstone Kavu.
But
Yeah.
that had Menace. Like, just no matter which way I slice it, this particular stat line just feels pretty medium.
It's just too expensive in my
Yeah,
mind.
2 mana to activates a lot. Even with the Power Stones, I just feel like this is not going to be exceedingly impressive. Like, the ideal is that I guess the best case for this card is you can make it a 3/4, which is probably the hardest thing to deal with because 2/5 you could block with something with 3 toughness. I don't know. You get some threat of activation with this, but it's a high setup cost. I think this is a 4.
Yeah.
Yeah. Scatter
Yeah.
Ray. Ooh. I'm anxious to see how you feel about this one. Scatter Ray is a 2 mana instant counter target artifact or creature spell unless its controller pays 4. Notably, you can
This
use
really just
Power
feels like
Stones.
you can use Power Stone, so it's a lot worse than it normally. I really, I'm high on this card.
I
Um,
agree. I agree. Even though
yeah,
you can
if you
use Power
counter their
Stones,
5-drop, like yeah,
even
it's
if you're
like
using Power Stones, you just need so much. 4's so much.
4's a massive amount.
4 is
Yeah, if you
so
have
much mana.
yeah, and often like it's probably not worth paying that mana. Sometimes you're worth just going like, okay, I'll just play another spell now.
I think especially in a format where people are trying to cast like 10 mana like artifacts and stuff, a card that says no thanks for 2 mana and it counters 2 of the most relevant creature types in the set or card types in the
Yeah,
set is going to be good.
exactly.
I think this card
This
is
card,
actually like a good bit better than Essence Scatter in this set.
yes, I would a lot better than Essence Scatter, I believe.
I
Um,
think the fact that it's conditional isn't that big of a deal because by the time they have 4 additional mana to pay for it, that thing that you're countering probably isn't worth it anyway.
yeah, exactly. If they're casting something that's 4 mana less than their total mana, like save it for the biggest
Yeah.
things, you know.
And like since you know that it's conditional anyway, you can just use it on well any artifact or creature. Like you don't have to
Yeah,
you don't have to wait around for something crazy big. It is 2 mana and it counters a creature or an artifact very early into the game, way through the mid to late game. So it's
yeah,
really hard to blank this card. I think in this set more than a lot of others, it's really hard to blank it. So
absolutely.
I'm on a 5.5 for this card. I think this is bordering on practically being a removal spell for how good it is.
Yeah,
You're going to take this over a lot of other commons. I think it's one of the premier blue commons.
yeah, absolutely.
Next up is Stern Lesson. This is 2 and a blue, instant. You draw 2 cards, discard 1, and create a Power Stone token.
I think this is good. Like this effect is always useful, and with unearthed cards in the set, that it you can get additional value. There's also grabbing a bit of mana, getting you up to 5
Yeah.
sounds all right.
So it's interesting because it looks like it's card neutral, but at the end of the exchange, you do get a Power Stone token.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's weird.
Like it is card neutral, so it's selection. Um yeah, it's kind of weird.
Yeah, especially for 3 mana. Like
Yeah,
I don't.
this is an instant notably.
Yeah,
So you can be holding up counter spells as well as having this in hand. or at least holding up the threat of counter spells. Like if this was in another color, I would be far less high on it because what they're playing green. What are they going to do? A combat trick, I suppose. Like,
Yeah.
but in blue, there's counter spells. There's a lot of instant effects, and hiding this when it's just a good effect that sculpts your hand well. I think it's a lot.
So I think where I'm at on this card is that if you don't have very specific things you want to do with Power Stones, or if you just have like a random activated ability or two inside your deck, and you're not trying to like ramp up to
Yeah.
something big or dig for specific things, that this card is probably not worth. But if you do have those things, it's probably going to be like a four.
Yeah, yeah. I mean,
If you're not trying to do stuff
also,
with the Power Stones,
yeah.
this is probably just worse than that 2 mana cantrip.
Yes. I mean, it's also the thing of like, if you don't have other card selection spells in your deck already,
Yeah.
just pick it up.
Yeah.
Just go for it. You know, having one
Yeah.
always helps.
It's going to be worse. It's going to be better than playing an 18th land.
Absolutely.
But like as far as card selection goes, you're actually getting about the same amount of card selection, well, technically a little bit more, out of the 2 mana spell than you are Stern Lesson. And really, what that extra mana is getting you for Stern Lesson is the Power Stone token. And of course, well, no, because you're drawing a card with the other one as well, so it still gives you the benefit of drawing an extra card. So, yeah, I think for this one, I'm on filler at the best of times, and worse from there if you don't have a way to use the Power Stone.
Mm-hmm.
Third Path Savant is next. 3 mana 2/3 with 7 mana draw 2 cards. Our first serious activated ability payoff that like has a big boy effect.
Yeah, this basically like if you're activating this, you should be winning the game next turn. If you're at this sort of mana and you're willing to be drawing cards with it, like
So
just kill them already.
here's an interesting one. So you have I'm going to give you an option here. You have the option
Okay.
of either having this in play and paying 7 to draw 2 cards, or and imagine you're in a board stall here. You could play like a 7 mana 7/7.
Um, I mean, it's this sort of thing of like
It's a toss up, isn't it?
it is a toss up, and especially in blue, where if we are in a board stall, I suppose I can go for more flyers, try to draw towards that.
Yeah.
Whereas a 7/7 on the board, it's it does the abyss and that sort of thing.
So really,
Like
what I
kills
think,
a creature every turn.
yeah, I think what I'm getting at here is that this card is actually a whole lot more like a big prototype artifact than you might think.
Yeah,
It's actually
absolutely.
plays quite a bit like that. Like, but you get both sides of it. You get the small part of it, which is the 3 mana 2/3 at every stage of the game, and then later on, if you want, you can pay the 7 to draw 2 cards. I think this is perfectly serviceable. I think this is a filler level card, and there's going to be times where I'm in a board stall and my opponent activates this, and I'm like, well, shit, I can't beat them drawing 3 cards a turn. Like someday they're going to hit something that matters, and I'm only drawing
Yeah,
1 card a turn. What the hell am I doing over here? I think you can definitely do worse than this card as far as ways to spend your mana. And when it comes to Power Stone tokens, if you don't have anything else to do with them and you got like 2 of them laying around, paying 5 to draw 2 cards, you might still be able to cast a spell after that.
absolutely. Yeah.
So I think I'm on 4 for Third Path Savant, and I don't think it's gonna go up from there, but maybe.
I don't think so. Yeah.
I don't think it's moving from that spot. I think it's like
If it is,
cleanly a
this
4.
format, yeah, if it is, this format is way different to what I think it is. So
It'd be a pretty wild format if people are just like, yes, I got my Third Path Savant
yeah,
set
please
now.
give me a 3. Yeah, please give me a 3-drop with the 7 mana activated ability. I'm like, oh, whoa.
No, look. I think we have a bad taste in our mouths from all the Zendikar sets where like the 8 mana activated ability was just never ever happening because people were beating
That's
down with
true.
landfall. I think in a format where people are trying to cast like 8 to 10 mana artifacts, this card gets a good bit better, and that's the only reason it's getting a 4.
Yeah.
Next up, we have Urza's Rebuff. Cancel is quite literally cancelled. We've been getting better versions of that card for many years now. This one, however, I think is much more meager than some of those other versions. I think it's interesting, but I don't know how good it is. 3 mana, counter a spell, or tap up to 2 target creatures.
I think this is good. I think this is a good card. I mean, flat removal. I mean, so we were looking at scatter rate, and we're basically saying it's basically counterspell here, right? But Urza's Rebuff literally is just counterspell, and it can just save your life if you need it to.
Yeah. So I think the thing about this card is that compared to the other one, is that you can't ever use this on 2, but I also think it just goes into a different deck. I mean, maybe
Yes.
actually, I think this fits in fewer decks rather, because I think you'll play that other one in basically every blue deck. I think this is like you're playing the beatdown deck, and while you're beating your opponent down, you either want to counter a threat or tap down something so you can get in another attack.
Yeah.
So I think in that way, this fits into a very specific subset of like aggro decks, or if you're extremely desperate to counter something later in the game and they have like some kind of crazy bomb, you may be sided in. But I think it is because you can't ever use it on 2, and it I don't know. I just feel like it's going to be a decent amount more narrow.
Yeah.
You know, 3 mana counters just always feel a little bit expensive to me.
I mean, I'm a big fan of modality,
Yeah.
and I think would I pay 3 mana for a counterspell? In a pinch, I would.
Yeah.
Would I pay 3 mana for tap 2 creatures? No, I would not. I would not mainboard that. But the fact that if tap 2 creatures is the better mode, it's going to be so much better than counter target spell. I think that counts for a lot.
Yeah, you just have to be inside the deck where that second mode is actually worth. And leaving up 3 mana is much harder than leaving up 2. So I think in the deck where that matters, tapping creatures, this card's going to be maybe like a filler card. And then in most other decks, I think it's going to drop.
Yeah.
Weakstone Subjugation is next. This is single blue mana. You get an artifact or a creature to enchant with it. And when it enters the battlefield, you can pay 3 if you do you tap that thing, and it doesn't untap during its controller's untap step. So
We've kind of had this one before.
yeah,
We've had this in basically Zendikar Rising.
Yeah,
that was
the
basically
kicker
a card
version.
like this. The kicker version.
Yeah.
I thought that card was going to be amazing. Did nothing. I don't think this is going to do it, especially because like there is, and not in blue and not like in red and black, there's a sacrifice sub theme. So any of the color pairs that include red or black, if your opponent's in them, they're probably gonna have some sort of sacrifice outlet or some way to utilize the artifact or the creature that you've locked down.
Yeah, and even if it's not like red and black, like almost all the uncommons we looked at, the multicolored, they either had enter the battlefield abilities or they had static abilities that don't care whether or not the creature's tapped.
Exactly.
So this just doesn't really do anything to those. And if you have this in your hand and your opponent has like the thing that makes 1/1s, okay, cool. I guess I'll tap you 2/1.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It's this. Yeah, this card just isn't good enough. It's just
No.
they've tried it before, and I trust their designing skills. I'm sure it's okay, but I don't want this card.
I think this
this card's gonna be good.
I think this is like a sideboard card for when your opponent's just trying to cram big dumb artifacts to turn sideways.
Mm.
And then it's just fine. So I would start it at like sideboard at the best of times and probably down from there. I think it's just a very narrow removal spell. It's a lot more narrow than the 2 mana deal 3 to a tapped creature one.
Yeah, a lot more narrow than that one.
Which is unfortunate. Like
Yeah.
there are going to be games where like your opponent plays like the next card, Wing Commando, attacks you with it, and you're like, oh cool, I can use my weak stone subjugation. But there's also going to be games where you're like, I guess I'll use it on their 2/2, and then they just don't have
Yeah.
anything else really worth putting it on.
Exactly.
Yeah,
I don't see this being worth it.
I agree. Speaking of Wing Commando, that's next. 2/2 for 3, flying prowess. So you were saying you like Windrake. Well, this is a
I
hell of a
love
lot better
Wind.
than Windrake.
Yeah, this is a lot better than Windrake. I think this card is going to be beating face, and just like this card. This card is going to be dealing a lot of damage. I feel.
It
It's a
definitely
soldier
can.
as well, which is a relevant piece of information.
Yeah, there's just a lot here. There's just
It
a
is.
lot here. Like the 2/2 flyer on its own hasn't always been the best in a lot of sets, but in this set more than others, I think trying to get under bigger, taller strategies is gonna work sometimes. And prowess is a really, really, really good consolation prize for having an otherwise relatively meek stat line. It's
Yeah.
good on offense. It can certainly still be good on defense. Like, remove some kind of on the ground thing that you don't want to deal with. Attack with your ground creatures, and now they either trade with your flyer or can't block it. There's just a lot of ways to make this work. I'm happy with this, and I'm going to put it at a 5, I'd say.
I would say so. Yeah. This card is just consistent and good.
Oh, wow, are those really all of our blue commons? It sure is. Okay.
Yeah.
Now I think I'm going to rewind back to the white uncommons. Then we'll do the
Okay.
blue uncommons and so on and so forth.
So we'll get started.
Ooh, here's a very interesting one. I don't know how good this one is in limited, but this is Calamity's Wake. 1 and a white instant, exile all graveyards. Players can't cast non-creature spells this turn. Exile it.
This card is not for limited.
It's definitely not.
If you need to clear unearth cards,
There are ways to do that.
it. Yeah.
Yeah, not only are there ways to do that, but they also do other things.
Yeah. The ceiling is so high on this card. But at the times that I'm casting this, I would much rather have just a different card to cast.
Yeah. It's just so weird because there are just so few situations where I want this. This is not a card you should play in limited. I just don't. It's not a design mistake because they were clearly meaning for it to do something in constructed formats. It's obviously reads like a
it's not a
constructed card.
design mistake. Yeah, that's the thing. It's not a design mistake, but it's still a 1.
Yes.
Because you're never going to put it into your deck. And I think that's. I think you've just got to be all right with that. Sometimes there are trap cards, usually up at like mythics and that sort of thing that just don't work out. Some build arounds and that sort of thing that don't work out, but sometimes it's at the uncommon, and I think this is one of them.
I just hope that when I play on the pre-release, I play against somebody who like thinks they're really, really, really good at the game, and they're like, "Oh, on your upkeep, Calamity's Wake."
Oh no, I can't cast a spell this turn.
I can't cast my instants on my main phase. What am I gonna do? Yeah, it's a 1. Great Desert Prospector. Next, it's 4 and a white, 3/2, and it creates a Power Stone token for each other creature you control. That's a very peculiar ability.
The floor is so low. The ceiling is so high. Like this card is sink or swim. This is very much. I don't want to be picking this card before like halfway through pack 2 because I want to know by that stage that I can make this work. Yeah. Because otherwise it's such a dead pick.
And there's also the question of what the hell are you doing in a deck that's looking to cram a bunch of cheap creatures on the ground with all these power stones. And there are things to do for it, but like this is a weird sort of build around enabler. This is definitely like a pack 2 situation kind of card. Like
absolutely. Like
I don't think I'm ever taking this pack 1 pick 1 or even like anywhere near the middle of pack 1.
Yeah, this and Phalanx Vanguard, the 2-drop with vigilance that grows a little bit when artifacts come in. They're best friends. They're best as buds, but I don't. It's just not worth it.
Yeah.
It's not worth it to like pick this to force this, because if you're forcing this, I think you're better off just picking the cards that you would that like that create a lot of creatures, because that's going to be worth so much more to you than 4 Power Stones later on.
Yeah, and then the 3/2 stat line. Yeah, just I'm not about it. I think this card is a build around, and I don't even know if it's a good build around. So for that reason, it's getting a 2.
Yeah.
Lay Down Arms is next. Single white mana, exile target creature with mana value less than or equal to the number of planes you control. Its controller gains 3 life. So the life gain is pretty meaningless.
Yeah, it doesn't matter much at all.
Not super. So
this card is great. I think this card's really good.
If you're playing mono white, this card is obviously incredible. Since it's 1 mana and trades for any creature. Being instant would be nice, but like you're not going to complain about a 1 mana unconditional removal spell.
Yeah, in uncommon in a standard set. Like we're not going to get Swords to Plowshares like that.
Yeah. So how many planes do you want in play for this card to be a 4?
A 4?
Yeah, I would like a playable card, a filler card.
Yeah, a playable card, 3 planes in play.
Yeah.
There's a lot of engine pieces and cards with really important text at 3. If you can get it to 4, I think it bumps up to a 5. And the fact that this, as long as you're keeping toe to toe with your opponent, even if you're in 2 colors, like you're getting like you've got 4 planes or they've got 6 lands or something, you've got 2 other lands. I think Lay Down Arms is still really good. Yeah. Also, this art is gorgeous.
It is very beautiful art. I really, really like it a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, it is interesting that it is also just the name Swords to Plowshares. And like the depiction of Swords to Plowshares, but not.
Have you read the flavor text of it?
Yes, it's quite literally.
Yeah, she'll swing a blade all her life, but never again for war. Like, yeah, it's literally just. And it really is. Like, if you look at this as basically sorcery speed, Swords to Plowshares on a 3-drop, it's pretty good.
Yeah. I just wonder how many times in this format I'm going to end up in like a 9/8 deck where the 9 is the planes, but I still end up with like 2 planes in play. And how do I feel about the card then? Well, then I think it's probably still like filler level, like kills a 2 or something. So I think I'm happy with like at least I think I'm happy with the first one of these cards, and the more planes I have in my deck, the happier I get with it. So I think
this is
baseline I'm at like 4, and then the more planes you load up, just the higher it goes.
Yeah, this is also going to be a constructed powerhouse, I think.
Oh yeah,
absolutely.
There's already a mono white deck in standard, isn't there?
I haven't played standard in ages, unfortunately, but yes, probably. There are some mono white stuff in Pioneer. Yeah, you can do mono white devotion and that sort of thing. Yeah.
Like I can't imagine this isn't at least a consideration in those decks. We have uncommon legends, and here's our first one. Lauren, Disciple of History, 4 mana, 3/3. We're going to be seeing a trend. There's a good number of those. And whenever it or another legendary creature enters the battlefield, you return a target artifact card from your graveyard to your hand. That's a pretty strong ability.
It's a strong ability, but there are not as many legends as you think there are. As there have been in previous sets. Yeah, exactly. I mean, if I see it as a 4 mana 3/3 that just regrows an artifact, that's great. I think it's really strong.
Yeah.
But I just don't think you're going to be triggering this ability more than once, basically.
Yeah, there's like one legend per color or something.
I think there's one. I think there's one uncommon legend per color.
Yeah, and then there's no uncommon double colors.
There's no 2-color uncommon legends.
So if you're like very lucky, you'll end up with two of these, but I don't think you really want to legend rule yourself.
Yeah, exactly. I
And
mean, if you
then
legend
maybe
roll, you
you'll
do
get
get
like,
2 triggers,
yeah,
but
but
it's
that's
still not
still,
worth it.
you're just getting rid of your creature for the artifact, I guess. Yeah,
Yes.
I mean, I definitely think this card is good. I don't know exactly how good, but I like it's hard for me to imagine that this is going to be miserable. You just need artifacts.
Exactly. It's the I think it's a 5 because it's just a staple. Like it's just going to be good enough.
Yeah,
Um, yeah.
yeah. I think this is a 5. I would agree with you. Mass production is next. This is a weird card. So it's a sorcery that creates creatures that are also artifacts, and they're also soldiers. But the
Yes.
problem is, I don't know if it fits in spells matters. I don't know if it fits in soldiers, and I don't
I
know if
think
it
it
fits in
has
artifacts.
I think it has to fit in soldiers.
Okay. Yeah.
I think that has to be the place it goes if it goes anywhere.
Yeah.
Um, like, yeah, this card's not amazing, and I think the reason it's not a common is because they don't want too many of these going around the draft. Like, somebody is going to be happy with one of these, I think, but
So
I don't think you'd ever want more.
allow me to speculate. I believe, and this could be completely off base, that at some point during design and development, you could pay the 5 mana using Power Stones with like a bit of rules text, and then they were like, oh, that's a little too much, and they got rid of it. Or maybe there was
Could be,
some sort of like other way to reduce the cost, because like 4/4 across 4 bodies for 6 mana. Yeah, you're getting some soldiers and like some artifact triggers. I don't know. I feel like you really I think this is a build around. I think
yeah,
that you're gonna need something in your deck that cares about getting either 4 artifacts, 4 creatures, or 4 soldiers. And if you don't have that, this card is bad.
yeah,
And if you do have those things, you need to have several of them, because if I don't have one of those things in play, mass production is not a good card for me. It just doesn't
no,
do anything.
no, it's not.
And I'm gonna be real. Some of the payoffs we've seen so far are not that good. Like we have like the 2 mana creature that gets +1/+0. Cool. It still just trades with something that has 2 power. That's good. I mean, the soldier payoff is solid, but then it's just
Yeah,
like 8 power and toughness worth of stats for 6 mana, which
yeah,
like we're in a set full of big giant creatures anyway. It's not really that big of a stretch to go from like 6 to like 8 almost. Especially when you
yeah.
factor in that you're going to be paying like with power stones to cast some of those. I don't know. Mass production just seems like a build around card to me.
Yeah, it's a Battleground card. It's a Battleground card, and it's not the first piece of the Battleground that you want.
Yeah, it's like an enabler ish for the payoff that's in the other cards. And I don't even think it's the best enabler. I think it is just an enabler. It's like, hey, you want to get 4 of these things? You can do it.
Yes.
Meticulous Excavation is next, and this is a single mana for an enchantment. And this is one of the weirder cards in the set. I read this earlier and I thought it was very interesting. You could pay 3, which is 2 and a white, and return something you control to its owner's hand. If it has
I'm
Unearth, exile it and then
yeah.
do it. And
Yeah.
it this is
I'm
such a weird
very
card.
excited. I'm very excited about this card. I think it's super cool. Um the fact that this is you can only activate it during your turn, but you can use it to save something if it's being, combat tricked or something like that. The fact that you can use power stones to activate most of the ability, and the fact that it doesn't it doesn't destroy your unearth cards. It just it actually just works the way you want it to. I think you can get a lot of value out of this, and I'm really hoping to basically force this deck.
So I think this is one of those cards that when it comes into play, I'm gonna go, ah. But then it'll either do literally nothing or it will completely take over the game.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
I don't know
absolutely.
how often it'll do either one of those things. It probably depends heavily on deck construction, because I don't think the format's going to be fast enough to really punish people for doing this maybe once or twice in a game. The question is, how much of this do you have to do? How much wheel spinning do you have to do to really get like your money's worth out of the mana and card investment? And the answer is not that much, especially on some of the things we've seen. Other things that give card advantage. There's Lauren, like bouncing a Lauren back to your hand. There's all sorts of different ways to get use out of
Yeah,
things, especially in the artifact slot.
exactly. Yeah,
Yeah,
this is.
I think this is a build around card, and
It's certainly a build around, and for me, it's the first piece of the build around. Like,
yes,
for me, I think this might be a pack one, pick one. If I don't see like a rare that I'm interested in, this is one of the uncommons that I'm most interested in, and I think would be the most. Is it the strongest? I don't know. That's the sort of thing that we're trying to judge, but time's eventually going to tell us. But I do know that for me, it's going to be one of the most fun.
I just can't wait to see
Yep.
the stories that people tell from this card.
Exactly. Yeah. Like I'm so glad that they didn't. I'm so glad that they didn't add the activate only once per turn ability clause to this, like they've done with so many cards recently.
Yeah,
It's been, yeah, it's been so good.
I do like that they said only during your turn though. Oh, this
Yeah,
card would be
I
kind
mean,
of obnoxious if you could just.
it would be
Uh,
very obnoxious. For one, yeah, the fact that it's so cheap up front as well, you just pay one mana on your first turn, and basically the rest of the game, unless they want to spend their dis on this, you've got this safety net. That's, yeah, crazy.
Next up is Recruitment Officer, and this looks a whole lot more like the kind of one drop I'm looking to play in Soldier Tribal. This is a 2-1 for 1, and you could pay 3 and a white to look at the top 4 and reveal a creature with mana value 3 or less and put it into your hand. Put the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order.
I'm
This
quite high on this one.
this is so
Yeah.
much better than the other one.
Yeah.
This is just
Yeah.
a good card.
It's a one mana 2/1.
Yeah,
Like, you know what? Pride Made Lion, that was a rare. That was a rare card at one stage. Just a plain one mana 2/1. And look at us now. It's a one mana 2/1 that can give you card advantage later on.
yeah. I mean,
So
the fact that it doesn't specify soldiers, there's just
yeah.
a lot
It's
happening
just
here.
any creature card. I think this is one of the cards, aside from obviously the black white uncommon the black white uncommon card. Aside from that, this is one of the cards that I'm like, okay, yeah, I kind of really want to try to do this mana value 3 or less strategy.
Yeah.
Really want to try to push for it.
Uh, with all that taken into consideration, I think a one that has some amount of value in the early game and a good amount of value in the late game makes this card a 5.5 for me. I don't know how
Yeah.
good that deck is. It's possible this card could be a 6 in it, but I don't know if I'm looking to first pick this, and I don't know how many times or like what the numbers are on how often I'm actually going to get this to get me a card. And I think it also depends.
Yeah.
Not only depends on your deck construction, but also depends on whether or not you're able to make power stones. But this is definitely like a premier one drop for white if you're in soldiers. Definitely above the other
Yeah.
one.
Exactly.
Repair and recharge is next. This is an interesting one. You just return an artifact, enchantment, or planeswalker from your graveyard to the battlefield, and you get a power stone token. Notably, it does not say creature. It's artifact,
It
enchantment,
doesn't.
or planeswalker. So you can
Yes.
get back
So
artifact
you're looking.
creatures.
Yeah, that's what you're looking for.
Yeah,
Um, I'm less high on this one because it can't get creatures. Like for limited, limited is a creature-based format.
yeah,
It just is. And I think repair and recharge, while it has its uses, it might just be a bit too limited for me here.
yeah. I think the thing that really does it for me is that you need the thing that you're getting back to be a good bit more than 5 mana for you to care at all. Like if I'm getting
Yeah.
back a 6 with this, I'm not happy. cool. I got a 6 back and I got a Power Stone for my trouble. Well, I could just probably cast 6 because I already had all the work to put it in the graveyard in the first place, and that
Yeah,
takes time and
absolutely.
resources.
It does.
This is like a sideboard card, and I think you want a very, very specific deck to even make this remotely playable because you can't really load up on just infinite big giant things. You can probably only play like maybe 4 super duper big things.
Yeah. This is not a limited card.
No, I
This
don't
is
even know
for
if it's
kitchen table magic and
yeah,
for maybe standard. It
yeah.
could be for standard. I don't know.
I also
It's a commander card. There we go. It's a commander card. That's what it's
fair.
for.
That's the thing. Like it only says your graveyard. Like I don't even think I'm gonna be playing it there.
Yeah,
It's so
I was looking
restrictive.
at it. Yeah, if it could be your opponent's graveyard, I would be much higher on this, but because you must be playing white in this set, it's what you're not getting that many big things out. I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just too hard to make that do anything worthwhile. For that reason, it's a build around and it's not a very good one. Static Net is next. This is 3 and a white, and this is a Oblivion Ring. And when it enters, you get 2 life and a tap Power Stone token. So it's kind of like Faith's Fetters almost. You get a little bit of
That's yeah,
life.
that is yeah,
Uh,
that's exactly
yeah,
the comparison I would make to it. Yeah, you gain a bit of life, and
I
I
think
don't know if
I,
I would say it's better than Faith's Fetters
yeah,
because if they destroy it, they don't get another like with Faith Fetters, they don't get another ETB, but
yeah,
this does get rid of static abilities as well.
yeah.
So
I like this. I like this. I think
yeah,
this is good.
I think it's good. I think this is a solid choice, and if you pick it up, it's yeah, you're gonna be happy.
Yeah, I think removal like this tends to sit around like the 5.5 to 6 range. Just a premium removal in these colors. Anything, no questions asked, non-land permanent, and you even get some upside on top of it. I think just flat 6.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Next up is Thopter Architect. This is 4 mana for a 2/3, and whenever an artifact enters the battlefield under your control, target creature gains flying until end of turn. Hmm.
I'm not such a fan of this card. Like giving creatures flying is very powerful, but yeah, like for 4 mana, you're getting a two, so it can't be used in the 3 mana or less synergy packages. It's not even a soldier.
Yeah.
It's I think it just misses too many things for it to be an early pickup. It might be the perfect card for your deck at one stage, but it's just not quite right. Yeah.
I think this should have been a 4 mana 2/2 flyer that gave something else flying when it attacked or something. Because this is just not a card I think almost any deck wants.
Yeah.
And for that reason, I'm giving this a 3.
Yeah.
It's just very, very medium at the best of times.
Yeah.
All right, next up we have blue uncommons. Pretty interesting stuff here. Starting with Defabricate. We have Fabricate already. Defabricate, however, is a little different. 2 mana instant, counter an artifact or enchantment spell, exile it instead of putting it into the graveyard, or you can counter an activated or triggered ability.
Importantly for this card, Unearth is an activated or triggered ability.
Indeed.
So I think this card is very strong. Um, what if you countered Sage of Latnam's ability? Stop him from drawing cards. I think is it Sage of Latnam?
The 7
Third Path
mana.
Savant. Yeah, Third Path Savant. Yeah, the 7 mana one. I'm thinking of it. But yeah, no, Defabricate. I think this card is good. Never has Stifle seen better play, I think, than in a set
I think I'm
with a
inclined
lot
to
of unearthed
agree. I
options.
think I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah, so hitting artifacts and enchantments and getting those things means that like it's definitely not as conditional as it looks on its face. Inside the Brothers War set, this is definitely a lot better than it is in others. I just don't know if adding that all together, if it justifies a main deck slot. I think this is a sideboard card,
Yeah,
and it's a good sideboard card. I think
yeah,
this is a very good sideboard card, especially against some of those
yeah.
artifacts that have like Unearth. Uh,
I see it. I
yeah,
see it very similarly to a disenchant for me. And I think I would be happy to mainboard this, though similar to the way I saw disenchant, I will be boarding it out if it doesn't work
yeah,
in that matchup.
yeah. I think that's perfectly fair. Flow of Knowledge is next. Well,
Yeah,
this is 5 mana. Draw a card for each island you control, and then discard 2 cards.
yeah.
It's very simple.
Um, yes, this is another of the monocolor payoff cards. Because you really want a bunch of islands for it. I think this one's strong enough that it's not a first pick, but if you're like, yeah, I've picked like 7 blue cards and 3 non-blue cards, I can start moving towards mono blue. I think Flow of Knowledge is a massive payoff for it because I mean, at 5 mana, draw 5, discard 2, at instant speed. Whew,
Yeah.
boy, that
I
card
want to at
just
least be getting 3 total cards in the positive. If
yeah,
or like I want to be drawing 3 cards for 5 mana on average. And the fact that I'm
yes,
discarding 2 is good because I could discard useless cards or lands, but it still
exactly.
is it's still a very hefty cost. The fact that it costs
Yeah,
5
absolutely.
tells you that like they know.
Yeah, they know. They know that this card, like, if this card was like 3 mana, I think that it would be busted, so busted. Like, yeah,
It's a
I
big
think this
constructed
card
card.
is. I think this card could see constructed play in standard. Um, I think it will. Um,
Hmm.
it's decent. It's enough.
I think if it was 3 mana, it would definitely see some kind of constructed play. I think at 5 it might just be a little too expensive, but for limited purposes, I think there will be a deck for it. I think mono blue is the deck for it, and if you're not mono blue, you want to be playing like 10-7, and even then
Yeah,
there are going to be games where you end up with like 3 islands in play. And I don't know if it's worth in those games. I think if you're playing mono blue, this card can be like a 7. Not actually. I don't think you want to first pick this card ever, but you can play it and
yeah,
it'll be like the power level of a 7. And then if you're not doing that, and if like,
yeah.
what if you
I
have
rated
four
it so.
islands in play? I think four
Yeah,
islands is a very generous number for you to have in play
it
in most
is.
games of Magic in a 2 color deck. So 5 mana, draw 4, discard 2. You're up 1 card in the exchange, even though you're filtering. You're technically only up the 1 card.
Yeah.
That's not
Yeah.
that good. It's fine,
Exactly. I've got
but
it
it's
as
not
a
good.
4/7 in my little uh, spreadsheet here because of that. In a 2 color deck, this is worth it. In a monocolor deck, it's incredible.
Yeah, I think you should not be aiming for this card in 2 color and in monocolor. Cool, draw a lot of cards. Good job. Draw them all. Top deck that in the late game and mill yourself. You know. Um, Next up we have Forging the Anchor. This is 3 mana. Look at the top 5 cards of your library. You can put any number of artifact cards from among them into your hand. Put the rest on the bottom in a random order.
Yeah.
Hmm.
I'm not too much of a fan of this. Like, the ceiling is high. And, I mean, okay, I look at this as divination. They've costed it like divination, and I expect it to work that way.
It doesn't.
But it's it's divination plus uncertainty,
Yeah, a lot of
which
uncertainty as well. So you're
yeah,
playing on average 17 lands, which means 23 of the cards in your deck are non lands, and one of them is Forging the Anchor. if you're playing this card, at least. So 22 cards in deck, you're already down to a 50-50 shot of a card even being a non-land. So at that point, how many cards are in your deck that are artifacts? Well, you're playing some amount of removal, so let's chop it down by like 3. So you're down to like 19-ish. You have to be playing some number of creatures. Maybe some of those are artifacts, but definitely not all of them. Maybe like half. So
Yeah.
so like maybe you'll hit 1. Sometimes you'll hit 2, and I don't think that's good enough. I think this card is
Yeah.
not good.
Exactly.
I think you need to be completely overloaded on artifacts for this to be remotely playable. And if you're not, it's just gonna miss way too often. Cool, yeah, like
That
you'll have like the occasional game where you look at the top 5 and you get like 3 cards, like, oh cool, I got 3. But that's gonna be the corner case. I think more often than not you're gonna hit 1 or 2, and you're not gonna be very happy with it.
Yeah, this is not a limited card. This is for constructed.
Yeah, and God forbid, like you need lands, and you're like, oh, this is just worse than divination. And
Exactly.
it's not like
Yeah.
divination's a great card. Divination is
No.
a very contentious card. There are sets where it's solid, there's sets where it's good, and there's sets where it's really bad.
Yeah. Exactly.
So for me, this is a I guess a 3. This is pretty bad filler. Involuntary Cooldown is next. This is 4 mana sorcery. Tap up to 2 creatures and/or artifacts. Put 2 stun counters on each of them. Interesting. So this is a tempo card. It is a sorcery. That's how you know that it's a tempo card, because it's kind of bad to be tapping out on your turn to do this if you're just hoping to stay alive. You want to tap down stuff, keep them tapped, and attack. I think that's what this is for.
Yeah. Exactly.
There's a lot of it. Like 2 stun counters is a lot. It's a pretty healthy amount, especially if you're tapping down things in the sky that would be blocking your flyers.
Mm,
I just don't know if that's good enough, though. I think it could be, but this is a lot worse than sleep.
it is. The fact that this is a sorcery feels pretty bad.
Yeah,
Um, yeah.
it just narrows its applications way more than you were hoping for.
Yeah. I'm just not excited about this card at all. I legitimately don't have that much to say about it because it's obvious what it does and it just doesn't do enough.
Would you be happier with this card if it cost 2 more mana and it let you draw a card?
No. I would be happier if it was one more mana and was an instant.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's how you know that this card is like just not
Yeah, I
especially
think
potent.
at sorcery speed, this tap down effect is not good enough.
Yeah. I just think that there's better things in the set if you're looking to beat down than this, and if you're on the defense, this card is not good at all.
Yeah.
So this is, I'd say, a bad to medium filler card if you're the aggro deck, like
Yeah.
looking to beat him with
I would say.
soldiers, and
Yeah.
otherwise it is just like a 2 or worse.
Yeah,
Uh,
I'd put it 3 maximum,
yeah.
probably less.
Keeper of the Cadence is next. This is 5 mana, 2/5 with an activated ability. You can put an artifact, instant, or sorcery from a graveyard on the bottom of its owner's library. So this is like mill insurance for you and disruption for your opponent.
I am actually a big fan of this card. So the funny thing is this kind of wrecks Unearth.
Mhm.
Like it absolutely destroys it because the cost of Unearth is to pay the mana. That's it. Putting it onto the battlefield is part of the resolution of that ability. So if they pay for Unearth and you just tuck it under their deck, it can't do it. This also gives you inevitability in the late game. It reminds me of Strixhaven. There was a really big artifact creature that you could pay to,
junk roller or
pay to and
something?
tap it. Something like that. It worked in the library. You pay 2 mana, you tap it, you put a card on the bottom of your library. Um, And it was surprising to me how much that actually mattered in some games. And because I feel like things are going to be going slowly in this set, I think Keeper of the Cadence is actually going to be a really high pick. We've talked before about we don't like the 5 mana 2/5 stat line, but only paying 3 mana for that ability and any number of times per turn at instant speed. Wow.
Yeah, I think
It's a
this
lot.
is better than that other card. Like,
Absolutely.
this is a much better 2/5 that actually does something, and I could
This
see
is
that this is the kind of 2/5 you want in your defensive deck, if you
this
want a
is not
2/5.
attacking and it's not pretending to.
Yeah. I time will tell if it's a format where people are going to be like milling themselves out quite a bit, and if that's
Yeah.
a relevant part of it. But even if it is just like a 2/5 with the ability to mess with your opponent's unearth, I think this is still a card that at least will hit filler level, at the very
Yeah.
least. And for that, I want to start it at like the minimum 4, and it's entirely possible that it shoots up from there. I don't know how far it can shoot up from there. I have to play with it a little bit, but I definitely think that you're right that it, like the ability to mess with Unearth like that's going to be very funny, and I can't wait to get somebody with it at the pre-release.
Yeah, absolutely.
Splitting the Power Stone is next. This is 3 mana as an additional cost to cast this spell, sacrifice an artifact, get 2 Power Stone tokens, and if the artifact was legendary, draw a card. Very interesting clause at the end there. I don't know how many legendary artifacts there are. Are there any of those at uncommon?
Not an uncommon, no.
Yeah, so not a whole lot of that there.
I'm not. This is not a limited card. Certainly not in. Certainly not unless you are big on the artifact synergies and have a lot of those like unearth cards or that sort of thing. Because as it is, you're paying 3 mana to ramp one probably because you're probably sacrificing a power stone. You're either sacrificing a power stone or a small artifact, and I don't know. It's not really that great, unfortunately.
Yeah, I think like so I'm thinking if this was just 3 mana create 2 tap Power Stone tokens with the legendary clause at the end there, would I play it?
Yeah,
And the answer is maybe. Not
I would
even.
probably do that, but
But it's not like a certainty. It's not like, oh yeah, this card's
no,
incredible. It's like this
no,
card is
definitely not.
playable, maybe in
Yeah,
a specific kind of deck. I don't think this is just playable at all. Like, what am I doing?
no,
Like,
I
what
don't
the
think
hell am I
so at
doing
all.
with this card? I'm just wheel spinning and not even in a way that I like. Especially because the
Yeah,
Power Stones come in tapped. Like, even if they came in untapped, they'd be recouped for some of my value. But how much and what am I even doing? Like, what's the end game of what I'm doing with these Stone tokens? And I just don't think this is it. So I'm giving this card a unsupported archetype grade of 2. Because I don't even know
yes,
what archetype this is supposed to be for.
yeah,
Oh, God. Take Flight is next.
yeah.
Yeah, this is a card. 4 mana, enchanted creature gets +1/+0 and has flying, and whenever this creature attacks, draw a card.
This should cost 2 mana. If
That
this costed 2 mana, it would
huge.
see play.
If this was 2 mana, this would cease play in constructed. This is like
Maybe.
Curious Obsession, but on like drugs.
I mean, it's
You
curious
so
obsession,
you don't even
but
so
it
you don't
gives it
have to
flying.
you don't have to connect with your opponent, and it gets flying.
Oh, jokes! Yeah, no, it's just whenever it attacks. Okay, no, it's better than I thought it was. Yeah, no, it's fine.
Yeah,
Card's
this
okay. Card's alright. Yeah, I just like saw it as curious obsession plus it gives flying, and I'm like,
oh
I don't like
yeah,
that too much.
that'd be
So,
like fine. Like yeah, cool. If I connect, I get something. But no, you don't even have to connect. You just get a freebie. Just throw like who cares? My creature's useless. Throw it at some like at my opponent, and if they block, I already got my card out of the take flight. And like giving
yeah,
flying and a power bonus on top of it is. I just know that my opponent's gonna suit up something, on turn 4 with this, and I'm not going to have any way to block it for like a turn or two. And if I don't untap and kill it, they're going to get another card out of it. Now, notably, you do have to draw 2 cards with this for it to get you returns. Because if it only draws you the 1 and then you untap and the creature gets killed, you've just traded a card for your take flight.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
But like once you draw that second card, the game's on. And it's really easy to get your first card out of this. If they don't blow this up in response to you targeting a creature with it, you're getting that first card. Just it's gonna happen. Because if you played it, you obviously have something you can attack with.
Yes.
So,
absolutely.
Like, it's really, really hard to make this card absolutely terrible. I think on the back foot, it's obviously a lot worse. But there's going to be games where you play this and you're going to draw like 3-4 cards with it, and your opponent's going to be miserable.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, yeah. This is one of the best supporters, like, now that I realize how the card actually works, this is one of the best supporters for the draw 2 archetype, because you're guaranteed, like, you're just attacking with a creature. It's flying. Like, you're going to get that card,
and
no
it's,
matter what.
And it's before combat damage, so everything that like cares about,
exactly.
giving it power and toughness bonuses
Yeah.
and stuff like that, and like evasion
so if you're
abilities. Like the
Yeah.
thing that gets +1/+0 in Menace, congratulations. Now it's a 4/3 with Menace and flying.
Yeah. What are they going to do about it? They're not going to do anything about it. They're just going to take it.
You're never blocking that. You're
Yeah.
never blocking that.
They're just going to take it. And that's a clock. Like,
That's
a
a
4/3
real
is a real clock.
And that's on a turn 4. You can do that. Just casual.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's.
As long as you got a creature down. It's, yeah.
I think this
Woo,
card's
boy.
good. I don't know exactly how good, but you do have to be aggressive. But I think if you're in an aggressive deck, this card is extremely good. I want to start it at 6, and I think it has room to go lower or room to potentially go higher, depending on what kind of format this is and how easy it is to interact with flying creatures. We haven't really seen too much like super duper great removal yet, because we've only looked over blue and white. But I mean, we'll see once we get to red and black just how easy it is to pop things out of the sky, especially in response, because we've seen a lot of sorcery speed answers, and we've seen a lot of things that care about creatures being like tapped. And notably, this will get you the card before they have a chance to kill it. If it says to kill the tapped creature, you'll get your card back. So that's good. But we'll see how much instant speed stuff there is when we get there. So I'm starting it at 6, and we'll see how the format shakes down.
I think so, yeah.
Oof, now this one I really like a lot. This is Thopter Mechanic. This is the enabler I'm looking for sure.
Sure is.
2 mana, 2/1. When you draw your second card, put a 1/1 counter on it, and when it dies, you get a 1/1 Thopter with flying.
Yeah. This card just, it's only a bundle of stats first time on the ground, and you just keep growing it every turn basically. But it grows quickly, like a 1/1 counter every turn. If you're able to, if you play this on 2, turn 3 you cast like a card draw spell, like, I don't know. If you cast what's it? Where are we? Okay. If you cast Stern Lesson after it, draw 2 cards to discard a card, on turn 3, cool, it grows, it's a 3/2 now, that's cool. Then you cast Take Flight on it, cool. Now it's a flying creature that grows itself every time it attacks. It also gives you something if they just immediately kill it.
Yeah.
Which just...
Would you... It's
so good.
If this card didn't say whenever you draw your second card, and it just said when it dies you can create a 1/1 flyer, I would still play it.
I would be... Yeah, I think I would wish it had another on it. Yeah. But yes, I would probably still play it.
This is just a 2/1 with Afterlife 1.
Yeah.
And that was an uncommon, wasn't it?
I wouldn't know. I wasn't playing when Afterlife was limited set.
Like, I want to say that there was an uncommon that was just 2/1 Afterlife 1. And
that does sound real.
Yeah. Maybe it was a common. I think maybe the uncommon one, a Death Touch or something. But like, look, the floor is so high.
Exactly.
and the ceiling is really good. Take this card; it's going to be good for you. This is a reason to play blue. This is like getting close to a 7 for me. I think I'm content putting it at a 6 to like 6.5. This card is just
Yeah,
really good. If you're playing blue, you don't have reason not to play this card. It's just too good.
yeah, absolutely.
Urza Power Stone Prodigy is next. This is one of the many Urzas in the set. We have several
Yes.
of them. Uh,
Uh, little Ursa. This is little Ursa.
yeah, this is little teeny Urza. Although in the art,
It packs a punch. Little Ursa packs a punch.
it's such a weird card, and the art direction's very interesting. Although I think
Yeah,
this is meant to be young Urza. The dude's still rocking some age on his face.
yeah. He's probably 30
You know,
or something.
Urza's never really been the most handsome lad. Let's just put it out there.
He's always had a little bit of insecurity. Yeah,
Yeah. So Urza's a 1/3 for 3 with vigilance, and you can loot. And that looting ability, obviously, we've seen it's good for drawing your second card each turn. And whenever you discard one or more artifact cards for any reason, primarily for the ability above, I imagine, you create a tap Power Stone token, and you can only do that once each turn.
yeah.
So I think Urza
I
is
think
good.
I think Ursa is very good. Um,
I think vigilance is very funny on a 1/3.
I literally don't. I really don't understand why he's got vigilance take flight because I don't want to be attacking with this. This is my engine.
Yeah.
This is me paying 1 mana to give me card selection and then create a Power Stone token.
Yeah,
It
I don't really get the vigilance either, but I definitely think this is a solid card. Like the draw discard, even without the Power Stone ability, is like not bad. It's still an enabler for all the other things you're doing, and the fact that you get
exactly.
the Power Stone bonus on top of it when you discard artifacts, it just feels like you're doing stuff here.
Yeah, I seriously think that this is one of. This is potentially. I will revise that. This is my favorite uncommon in the set. And I think this is first pick material for me, just because it does at least like for me. I think this archetype is going to be strong, and I will enjoy it. And I think it's going to be a very, very, very powerful enabler.
Yeah, I mean, if you're in a format where you're going to be playing like somewhere between 1 and 4 big, dumb, gigantic creatures, churning through your deck a little bit's always going to be good. And in the
Yeah,
early game, if you don't have a way to cast those things, pitching them is always solid. And this looks to be one of those sets, or it looks to be just all around a good way to make that happen.
yes, absolutely.
Ooh, just one left, and this one is Zephyr Sentinel. This is a 2/1 with flash and flying. Um,
Yeah,
so just before I even get to the other parts of it, which I haven't even read that bit yet. 2/1
yeah,
flash flying I like already. I think
I
2/1
do.
flyers are
Yeah,
good, and I think that giving this flash means that you can still keep like scatter ray
yeah,
and
absolutely.
scatter ray if you feel like it, and Zephyr Sentinel if you don't.
Exactly. You can play around all sorts of stuff. Again, instant speed, like being proactive at instant speed in blue is so important because leaving up mana in blue like people are so conditioned to play careful, to play safe. And then you get to their end step and you're like, cool, I'll just play a 2/1. Woo! And just drop them straight in.
Yeah.
And a 2/1 is a two yeah. Like two power
Additionally,
flyers.
oh,
Yeah.
go
Sorry.
ahead. 2 power flyers.
Two power flyers really just get the beatdown going. Like in Dominaria United, for example, I had very good success with the kicker 2/1. 2/1. It was a 2 mana 2/1 flyer and it had a red kicker so that you could discard your hand and draw. That card was amazingly aggressive because you just drop it on 2. If they don't immediately have another flyer, or if they don't have something with reach or immediate removal, that thing's coming in for like 6 damage, maybe
Yeah.
8, maybe 10.
Yeah.
It's so quick.
So the other part of this card is definitely not weak. When it enters the battlefield, you return up to one other target creature you control to its owner's hand. If it was a soldier, you put a 1/1 counter on this. Remind you, this has flash, so this can just save things from removal spells. And if that thing is a soldier, you have a 3/2 flyer for 2 mana. That's saved one of your creatures from a removal spell. This card is incredibly good. It starts out with like a passable 4.5 to 5, and then it only goes up from there.
Exactly.
This is a groan card. I'm gonna groan a lot when I see this card on the other side of the battlefield.
Yeah.
And the fact that it only costs like 2 and not like 3 or anything else means that you're gonna be wondering whether or not your opponent has it a lot of times.
Yeah. Absolutely.
With that in mind, I think you need soldiers to like maximize this, but you don't really need soldiers to make it good. It's still just good on its face. So I think this is like a 6.5, bordering on first pickable. Maybe even first pickable.
Yeah.
Sheesh.
It's very... Yeah. This card's strong. This card is strong.
Yeah. Alright, and that brings us to black, which is the last color we're going to be doing for today. We're going to be doing the commons and uncommons. Starting off with Ashnod's Intervention. This is an instant, +2/+0 for a creature, and when it dies or is put into exile from the battlefield, return it to its owner's hand. Well,
I'm not a big fan of this one, sadly.
Yeah, we've seen variants of this where it goes straight back to the battlefield, and that one has been like arguably playable.
Very good.
Yeah, it's ranged from like okay to pretty good. This this is
the
like
fact that this gets unearthed creatures. That's its benefit here. So if it's put into exile with unearth, you then get it back to your hand. But I'm not sure. I think 2 damage. If it was like Death Touch or something, if it was a combat relevant ability, you can get a better trade with 2 more power, but I just don't see it.
It's like a raised dead.
Basically.
Yeah.
I don't see it working out great here.
And it has to be something that's on the battlefield for you to hit with it. So it's not like it really even does the thing that raised dead is often notable for doing, which is get it back later. Like, you need to have the mana. It needs to be a thing that's dying right then and there. It's very conditional, and I don't know if it's very good. I don't think it is. I think this is a bad filler card. Time will tell if I'm proven wrong.
I've got this as 2.
That's fair. I think that's perfectly fair. Carrion Locust is next. 3 mana, 2/1 flyer. And when it enters the battlefield, you exile a card from an opponent's graveyard. And if it was a creature, that player loses 1 life. That's very specific. And I don't know. I don't know about this one.
If your opponent is playing with unearthed cards, this is good. But if you really want to be playing this on curve to maximize the damage it can deal before something blocks it out or they ping it off somehow, and unless they're like milling themselves pretty early, or you're on the play or you're on the draw or something to give them an extra turn, I don't see there being too many useful or not too many targets with a point.
I think what does it for me is that when it comes to 3 mana flyers, we've been getting some pretty good bonuses. I don't think this is a good enough bonus for me. If this had flash, then I would be in some business, because then you could like flash it in to deal with something that was about to be unearthed. But like just on its face, sorcery speed 2/1 flyer with some marginal upside, it just doesn't do it for me. Because like the other one, it had prowess, and then we've had ones with like flash, and there was the white one that maybe draws you a card. This just seems like it's a big step down from those.
It is. It really is.
Yeah, so I'm on 4 for this. That's very generous 4.
I would exactly. I would play this. I would play
Yeah,
this card, but I wouldn't be very happy about it.
there are just better things to do. That's the problem.
Yeah,
Yeah. Next up is Disfigure. Disfigure still does what it does. There's stuff with two toughness. Your opponent's not gonna not have two toughness creatures. It's just a
yeah,
question of how many there are. You can use it as a combat trick to also augment their creatures down to a
yeah.
manageable size.
It does. It does just outright kill 47 of 102, so around 50%, 50/50 of all the uncommon or common creatures in the set.
And for one
Does
mana,
just
that's a
straight up
lot.
kill them. And for one mana, that's a lot.
Yeah,
Disfigure is, you should never overlook Disfigure.
yeah. It's a good card. Um, it's it like it's. I don't think it's ever been a first pickable card, but I definitely think
No.
this is a six. You're gonna play it. It's gonna be very efficient. You're gonna double spell with it a whole lot. You're gonna deal with problematic creatures that your opponent has, especially some of the uncommons and even a few of the rares, and you're gonna be
Yeah,
happy. Like you're never gonna be
I,
disappointed with Disfigure. It's very hard to find a game where Disfigure is just a stone cold blank.
absolutely. 100%.
Emergency Weld is next. This is a 2 mana sorcery. Return an artifact or creature from your graveyard to your hand. Create a 1/1 soldier artifact creature token. Hmm.
I'm not sold on this. Yeah, like it's a regrowth for an artifact or a creature. You do get a little token along with it, but I mean, having one of these effects isn't bad. It's a great late game top deck, but it doesn't feel great.
Yeah, like I prefer the versions of this where it like costs a little more and you get two things.
Exactly. No, that's the whole thing. Like I would pay for like if they doubled all the effects on this card, I would play it. So if they doubled the cost and doubled the effects, I would play it easily.
You get two
But I
one
think
ones, get
one
two
for
things
one,
back.
yeah, one for one, it's just not worth it. Like I would rather instead of paying two more for a copy of something, I would rather just play another threat.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I like this a whole lot more than I like Ashnod's intervention. But even so, I think it's like just barely above that. I think it's like four. I think
Yeah.
you could play it. Yeah, it's never gonna be like the worst. You're gonna get something back, get a 1/1 for your
Yeah,
trouble.
exactly. Yeah, I think this is better than Ashnod's intervention by a
Yeah.
lot, but it's not. Yeah, it's still not good. That's not saying much.
Yeah.
Is what I mean.
Ooh, Gix's Caress. This is 3 mana. Uh, target opponent reveals their
Sorcery,
hand.
admittedly.
You yes. Target opponent reveals their hand. You choose an online card. They discard that card. Create a tapped Power Stone token. Yeah. This is a sideboard card,
It,
if you ask me.
I mean, yeah, it's fine, is what it is.
Yeah.
Um, yeah,
I think even out
it's
of the
no mind
sideboard,
rot.
it's fine.
Yeah, it's not a mind rot,
No.
which is unfortunate, but it's still okay. I'm not happy to be main decking this though. This is my 25th card. So
Yeah. I think I need my opponent to have something I literally cannot beat for me to consider playing this card.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah. That would do it.
So I'm on a 2 for this. I don't think I ever want to main deck it.
Yeah.
Gixian Infiltrator is next. This is 2 mana for a 2/1, and whenever you sacrifice a permanent, put a 1/1 counter on it. Hmm. Well, here's some of the sacrifice theme, and
Yeah.
I gotta say the reward is not awful, but like it's not. I don't think it's that good. I,
Yeah,
I think starting on one
yeah,
toughness is what makes this bad.
it really is a shame.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think if this was a bear, like 2 mana 2/2, I think this would be a lot
Oh,
more effective
it'd be
of
so
a
much better.
card.
It'd be so much better
So
because
much
like
better.
it starts
Um,
out just dying to a 1/1 little soldier, and then you have to sacrifice a
yeah,
whole permanent, and your reward is it still trades with a 2/2.
yeah. But it is a good payoff. Like if you grow this to be like a 4/3 or something, that is very powerful. And because it's a common, you can probably, if you're looking for them and actively trying to get them, you can probably pick up 2 or 3 throughout the draft. And they are, I think, if you're looking for a more aggressive sacrifice theme, this might be one of the important pieces that you need to be keeping an eye out for.
I agree. I just don't know how good that deck will be. And I also think
That's
that
the
in
problem,
the
isn't it?
late game
Yeah.
specifically, top decking
Yes.
this, it's not like the other, like, what was the one? The uncommon, where whenever you played an artifact, you just got a 1/1 counter wherever you want. It's not like that card.
Yeah.
This is what gets the counters. And it doesn't enable you to get the counters in any way. It just, you play it, and then you have to do the thing, and then it gets bigger. So this is, it's not very good later in the game, and in the beginning of the game, it's very meager. So the place where it shines is like the middle of the game when you've already played it and you haven't attacked or blocked with it, and then you can sacrifice some stuff to make it better. And I think all of that together makes it a little too high of a setup cost for me to consider it very good. And I think I want to start it at like a 3, and I could see maybe a world where it's like a 4. Unless that
Yeah.
aggressive deck is like crazy and I'm just not seeing it, and then maybe it goes higher.
Yeah. Makes sense.
Gixian Skullflare is next, a card name that you find a little icky.
Look, okay, I'm not a fan of skull flaying, all right? I don't feel like that should be a controversial opinion.
Well, I don't know. I'm a fan of skulls, and
Yeah.
who doesn't enjoy good
Although
flaying
maybe,
from time to
yeah,
time?
maybe I should stay on the right side of Gix though, because
Yeah.
he's not the nicest person, is he?
No.
No,
No.
not really.
He's a demon.
well.
Didn't he like kill a couple of very important named characters, and like
Yeah,
corrupt a
that's
few
very
others?
likely. That sounds right. Yeah.
So this is I like this card a whole lot more than I like the last one. This is 3 mana for a 2/3,
Yeah.
and at the beginning of your upkeep, if there's 3 or more creature cards in your graveyard, put a 1/1 counter on it.
Yeah. I rated this one a lot higher in my estimation because it starts with a defensive stat line. Like
Yeah.
it can already block at least.
And then it only
Having,
gets
like,
worse for
it's
your
not
opponent.
exactly. It's not trivial to have 3 or more creature cards in your graveyard, but
It's
you've
definitely
got
not impossible.
it's not impossible, and if you're you can definitely work to make it work. And if it's a 3/4 on turn 4, that's pretty strong.
Yeah, I mean, you don't even need it to be like turn 4. If you're like in the middle of the game and this gets 1 counter on it, a 3/4 is a body. A 3/4 is a pretty meaningful body.
It really is.
And then,
Yes.
like, if this just sits around, if you're in any kind of board stall at all, like, there are going to be 3 creatures in the graveyard in a game of limited most of the time, the later the game goes.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
this just piling up the counters on itself, I think this card is a 5. I think you're going to play it and not be too excited with the front end of 3 mana 2/3, but you don't really have to do that much work unless you're trying to turn it on like literally turn 4 to get those counters going. And once you do, it gets big. It gets big pretty quick.
Gets real big, yes.
I don't think it's an exaggeration to say that you're going to see these things start to tussle with the big robots eventually.
Yeah.
Like, your opponent has to deal with this at some point, either by like swinging into it and hoping that you block, or killing it. Otherwise, you're just going to start like trading off your random creatures, and this is just going to sit there. And maybe you only have 1 thing this turn, maybe you only have 2 the next turn, but someday you're going to start getting counters on there, and your opponent's going to go, oh no. And I like that. Killzone Acrobat is next. This is 3 mana for a 3/2. Whenever it attacks, you can sacrifice another creature or artifact. If you do, it gains flying until end of turn. This is interesting.
Yeah. This is So this is one of the things that you use to sacrifice things, obviously.
Yeah.
You can sacrifice artifacts, importantly. So if you've got excess power stones that aren't doing anything, you can jump this guy over. 3 damage is not negligible. And it can be useful.
Yeah,
I don't see him being the core of your deck though.
I
It's
agree.
not an important card, it's just a role player.
Yeah, I think this is a four. I think it's a four
Yeah.
because the payoff of just gaining flying is just fine. Like
Yeah.
that's a pretty big cost for a benefit.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
Moment of Defiance is next. This is 3 mana. Seeing a lot of 3 mana things here, I guess. Target creature
Yes.
gains +2/+1 and gains lifelink until end of turn. Draw a card. The magic words "draw a card" are, I think, the only reason I'm paying any attention to this card at all.
Yeah, I mean,
And I don't even know how much attention
okay.
I'm paying to it.
I don't think we should pay it much attention because you remember that wonderful card, Union of the Third Path that we were talking about earlier.
Yes,
Draw a card, you gain life. Yeah,
this is barely a step above it.
this is the same card. This is the same card. It's a lot better when you have no cards in hand, but you need to have a creature on the board, and you can win combat. I suppose.
Yeah.
I'm not sold. This is the sort of combat trick. Only +1 toughness boost. It's like I don't know if it's really gonna like stat blocks aren't so tight for it. But
Usually, I
yeah,
prefer like the Blade Brand style of card, where it's like a Death Touch draw card, and I like those to be 2 mana. I don't like leaving up 3 mana for a combat trick that isn't guaranteed to win me combat, and this is that.
exactly.
Even if
Yeah,
it says draw a card on it, like that's just a lot of mana for something that isn't guaranteed to do what I want. And
yeah,
cashing it in for a card costs 3 mana, so that's a little too much for me to just free roll it. I think this is a 24th card for me. This is like a 3. I don't think I even
yeah. I
want it
think
as
so.
my 23rd.
I think that I yeah.
Yeah,
I might go so far as to put it as a 2 myself, but I think it has more application than Union of the Third Path, but it does, yeah.
yeah, just barely. Overwhelming
Not by much, yeah.
Remorse. This is the premium removal spell. This has
This is
constructed applications.
yeah.
This is probably a first pickable card.
This card is going to change Pauper decks forever. The fact that this is a common is kind of nuts. Uh,
Yeah,
so it has the potential of being a single black mana, instant, exile target creature or planeswalker, just no matter what. Like that's really good. I would be happy to cast this for 3. So if I have 2 creatures in my graveyard, I'm happy. And if I have 4, then I'm laughing. This
I mean,
is one of the best.
if I'm paying 3 for this, I'm very happy. If I'm paying 4 for this, I'm still happy. If I'm paying
Yeah,
5, I'm not like super happy, but it's still exile and it's still an instant.
exactly.
It's
Yeah,
really
if you're
hard to
paying
make this card bad.
exactly, if you have no creatures in your graveyard and you've got 5 mana, cast the spell. Just do it. Just win the
Yeah.
game already.
And
Like,
then there's going to be times where this costs like 2 or even 1,
yeah,
and it's going to
and it's
be obviously quite good.
yeah, incredible top deck. Like absolutely amazing top deck. It will break directly through board stalls. Um, because it's so cheap, you don't need to worry about ward costs nearly as much. You do still have to worry, but not as much. Um, yeah,
Yeah, just far and away the best removal spell that we've seen so far.
yeah,
Not just in this set,
absolutely.
but in probably a few years.
Yeah, as a common black removal spell, this
Yeah.
is probably the best like standard set one we've seen in years.
Next up, we have Power Stone Fracture. This is 2 mana. Uh, as an additional cost, sacrifice an artifact or creature, destroy target creature or planeswalker. I liked these cards when they were 1 mana. Um, I don't know
Yeah,
how much I like them when they're 2.
I mean,
I think you'll
bone
still play
shard.
them. Yeah,
Yeah, I think I'm still gonna be playing this, and I'm still going to be happy enough with it. Um, because trading my Power Stone for their their big robot is a great trade. Um, but yeah, with overwhelming remorse in the set as well, so much, so much stinkier. But I'll still take it because removal is required. People don't forget it. You need removal. You might
Yes.
think you could just overwhelm your opponents. No, just take it. Just take a kill spell.
Yeah.
You're gonna like it.
Yeah, I'm still gonna play this. I'm gonna be like a little sad that it's 2 mana every single time. Like, I think the thing was that it was 1 mana in a set where you constantly had access to the 2/2 zombies that killed themselves when they attacks,
Yeah.
and that, it was still 1 mana there. And Eaten Alive also said Exile, didn't it?
Yeah, exactly. I think so. Yeah, I
And
think
now
it did.
and now I have to sacrifice like actual cards in play that will maybe do something later, like not just sacrifice themselves
Yeah.
later, and it's
I mean,
two
that
mana
was
and I only
yeah.
get destroy. Eh.
That was Modern Horizons 2. That was Modern Horizons.
Out
So
of
I
Modern
mean, it's a bit of
Horizons?
a.
Oh
I
yeah.
think it was.
I thought it was a Midnight Hunt.
Oh, maybe I'm thinking wrong.
I mean, I know there was like
I
some
know
kind
that.
of
Yeah,
sacrifice a
they did
creature,
one.
do a thing.
Yeah, I know they. Yeah. All these sets this year just blending together.
Yeah,
I tell you
yeah.
what.
I have a whole article
Yep.
about that thing.
Yep.
Uh, with that in mind, I think Power Stone Fracture is it's still going to be a 5. Like you're still going to play it. You're going to find something
Yeah.
to sacrifice to kill their things, and you're going to be happy with it. Just a little
You're
less
gonna
happy
find a
than you
good
would have
trade.
been. Yeah,
Exactly. It's a good card.
yeah. Ravenous Gigamole is next. This is a 4 mana 2/3 mole horror,
Hell yeah. Hell
and
yeah.
yeah, it mills 3, and you can get a creature back from the milled cards. If you don't do that, you put a 1/1 counter on it. So the modes are get one of those 3 cards back, or you have
Yeah.
a 3/4 for 4.
I think okay. The stats aren't good, but I think that milling cards in black is so much more important. Like you actively want to fill up your graveyard and you want to have creatures in there. So I
Yeah,
think that you might run this just as a creature that also mills you. If you want one of the creatures milled, you can bring it back. Otherwise it's a 4 mana 3 and it's fine.
yeah. I think this is a whole lot better than the one that got non-creature, non-lands. This is
Yeah,
much
the
more
blue
likely to
one.
hit.
Yeah.
But even
The
so, I
blue
think
one.
you should still treat this as like 50-ish% of the time you're just not going to have a choice.
Yeah.
50-ish% of
And
the
not
time
having
you...
a
Go ahead.
yeah. Yeah, but the thing is that 50% of the time that you don't have a choice, you'll have a 4 mana 3/4, which is
Yes.
below vanilla,
Yeah.
but it's not far below.
Well, I'm just saying so people can take it into consideration. I think you
Absolutely.
definitely should consider this as most of the time a 3/4 for 4 that mills you for 3 cards, and then sometimes you'll get the opportunity, like about half-ish of the time, to get the creature back and keep it as a 2/3 if you want to. And with that in mind, I think I'm comfortable with this as like a 4, maybe bordering on like 4.5.
Yeah. Yeah, I would fully agree with that. Yeah.
Fair. Thraxodemon is next. Cool name, interesting art as well.
Very cool.
This is a 2 mana 2/2 with a very unfortunate ability. So not only do you have to pay 3, you also have to tap, and you also have to sacrifice another creature or artifact, and then you can draw a card.
It's not great. It's not great. But you might just need that 24th card. You might just need another way to sacrifice something each turn to get some of your engines moving. It's not great,
I do think this
but
is a 4. I think this is a 2-drop
yeah,
that you can play. It's a 2/2 for 2, and in the late game you can pay a lot of mana and sacrifice things to draw cards. Notably, it's all colorless, so you can use Power Stones, but even so, like the tap and the sacrifice and the 3 You're paying 3 different costs.
You are. You really are.
That's a lot of costs. Yeah, I think you'll play like one, maybe two of these, but I
Yeah.
don't think you're ever going to be super
You
duper
need
happy about
to,
it.
yeah. Yeah. You need to turn that sacrifice another creature out from a cost into a benefit for you in order to make this card good.
Yeah, or just have a whole lot of board stalls and a whole lot of expendable things. Yeah, it's just rough.
Yes.
Trench Stalker is next. This is it looks like a bat. Looks like a bat with legs and arms and claw things. But it's a 5 mana 4/5,
Mm.
and as long as you've drawn 2 or more cards, it has Death Touch and Lifelink. That's
This is a common payoff for
interesting.
the blue black draw.
Yeah.
Draw an extra card. Um,
Hmm.
and legitimately, like, it's an expensive creature, but are you really gonna block it? Like, I don't know what you're blocking this with because at that stage, like, even if you chump away with like four little guys, it's gonna kill them all and
Yeah.
gain you life in the process.
It's difficult to do this on defense. It's geared more towards attacking. It's a lot easier to draw 2 on your turn than it is your opponent's turn. So they want you to
Yeah.
be beating down. And notably, we've looked through all the commons in black so far. There aren't any
Yes.
common creatures with Death Touch at all.
No, that is an important factor.
Yeah,
Yes.
I think there's like an artifact common that can has Death Touch maybe. I think there's at least one
Yes.
uncommon,
There is.
but they're kind of lowering the number of ways for you to easily deal with big giant creatures. Obviously, I think they want you to be able to play your big things and attack with them. And
Yes, there's still. Yeah. That's
this is not bad.
yeah.
I think this is like
This
a 4.5.
yeah. I I think this is more than most. Like, it's at the top end of 4 for me
Yeah,
because it's more than most. Um, it's more than most cards are going to give you, especially at that cost. Like 5, as we've looked through the cards, like none of these 3 drops are killing you.
yeah,
Not by themselves, not super quickly. Um, you're gonna get to 5 mana basically, and this can turn a combat race so quickly just by being a threat, basically.
yeah. I do expect this thing is going to turn sideways a lot, mostly because
Yeah. Oh,
we've seen a lot of like 5s, 4s, and 3s that are just not blocking this even without the Death Touch.
yeah, exactly.
You have to do a lot of work to make this thing be blocked profitably. God forbid it
Yeah.
has Death Touch when it does do its attacking. But even so, like I know in this set in particular, there's a lot of artifacts. We haven't even gotten to them yet, but there's a lot of them, and they're big and expensive, and those are the big creatures. This is kind of like bridging the gap between the two, and because there already exists that kind of space uh, with the prototype cards. I don't know how valuable this card is, which is why I'm not confident giving it a 5, but I think it is better than a lot of the 4s we've seen.
Yeah,
So 4.5
100%.
for me, and that rounds out the common black cards. Now we're gonna get the uncommon black cards.
Yes.
Ooh, that's a nice name. Oh, also, did you notice on the art for that last one, if you
Mm-hmm.
look right beneath the creature on the left-hand side, there's a person.
Oh, there's a person there
Yeah, and they're
covering
like,
their face
yeah,
up.
so they don't make noise and tell the
Yeah, I
stalker where
would
they
I
are.
would be silent next to that thing. God.
Next up is Battlefield Butcher. This is a 3 mana 1/4. Ooh, interesting. Well, we've seen abilities like this before.
We have, and it's rather powerful.
Yes.
Um, this is going to gum up the board. It's going to stop one of their attackers every turn, and then after that, you just tap it and just shoot them for 2.
Yeah, I mean, the fact that it has built in cost reduction as well as being able to be paid by Power Stones,
Yeah,
It kind of does a double
big fan.
duty. And
Yeah.
I've died to versions of this card where you just had to pay 6 for every
Yeah,
activation.
I remember that. Oh god, yeah. And it was kind of unbeatable.
Yeah, it was not good. It was very painful. It was not the most fun. As it stands, the stat line is a little bit meager, but I think it's probably good enough to warrant this being a 5. I don't know if I would necessarily move it up to 6. Maybe. I think if you could draw the game out
I
a good amount, it could very well be a 6.
Yeah, I think it could very well be a 6, especially if we see it. Yeah.
Yeah.
If yeah, this is such a big payoff, but it's very bad. Like, you don't want to play this on 3 really, but if you play this on like 5 or 6, you're absolutely so happy about it. So,
Yeah. I mean, you can play it on 3. That's like the thing about it that I think is like a good. The fact that you can just play it out as a 3
you
that will
can.
block and do
Yeah,
stuff, and then later on in the game it actually has practical applications. It isn't just a 3 mana 1/4. Um,
yes.
yeah, I like it. I'll keep it at
Absolutely.
a 5 for now with a nod towards maybe moving it higher as the format progresses. Next up, we
Absolutely.
have Corrupt. Uh, when Mom says we have Zenith Flare at home,
Yeah.
this is what she's talking about.
This is not good. This card is very bad.
6 mana is a lot of mana, and I think in this format specifically, it's less than it would usually be. But it also specifically says swamps, and I don't think they reprinted Urborg.
No, this is again the monocolor payoff for black.
Yeah, and
I'm not
it's
I'm
not that
not
good.
keen on
Yeah,
it. Like, even if it's 6 mana, deal 6, gain 6, like,
it's a hefty
it
cost.
can go face. It can go face. It
Yeah.
is important to note. So, it is a great top deck late game if you've played out like 10 lands or something, you just nug them in the face for 10. But oh god. It's so clunky at any other point in the game.
So the floor is just miserable, and the ceiling is you win the game. Um, Cards like this, completely feast or famine. I'm inclined to give this a build around grade, but
Yeah,
I don't know how
I
good
I
this
would
build around
be
is.
I would be putting it at 2. It's like, if you're already in Mod Black, and okay, I will take one of these. Um,
So
yeah,
if the way I'm casting this is just 6 swamps in play, I'm very happy because I can just shoot my opponent's face. And if I
yeah.
have like 3 of these in my deck, I will kill my opponent with them.
You will.
Uh, but I also have to be in mono black. So like this is like a collect to win sort of thing.
Basically,
This
yeah.
is like playing a slot machine. It's if you get 3 of them, cool. You could probably do some cool stuff. But if you have like one of these inside your deck and you've conceded to playing like mono black so that you can make this work, this is not going to be good. You need
No.
this to be your game plan, and you need everything else to kind of be supporting it. And I don't know if that's good enough. So I'm gonna give this a 3.
Okay, yeah.
If you're in mono black and you have one of them, I think it goes up to like a 4 and some change. If you have like, if somehow you end up with 4 of these and you're in mono black, well, congratulations, you've turned this into like a 6.
Yeah. I might ask how the heck you got there, but absolutely.
Yeah, it's a very very strange draft, but I don't think corrupt is good. I don't think it's very good at all.
No, I don't think it's.
No, this is an interesting one. Very very interesting design here. Disciples of Gix, 6 mana 4/4.
Yeah.
When it enters the battlefield, search your library for up to 3 artifact cards. Put them into your graveyard, then shuffle.
Um. So this can fill your graveyard with artifact creatures very quickly. and let you get everything online for your synergies. But I would really hope that you have it before 6 mana. Like, it's okay, but I'm not the biggest fan of this.
Yeah. So they did make this an uncommon, and I do have to imagine that they were thinking about like Unearth or something, and I guess they didn't want it to be super duper cheap for constructed purposes. Tutoring to the Graveyard is an ability that they think is quite strong.
It is rather good, yes.
But it seems like they're punishing it for the sins of other formats.
Probably, yeah.
And with that in mind, I don't think I'm very excited about this one. The 4/4 stat line's cool and all, but I think I'm giving this a 4. At the best of times.
I think I'm with you on that one. Yeah.
Ooh, we got a really pretty one here. Dreams of Steel and Oil.
Love this card. Card's gorgeous.
It is quite beautiful. And the flavor text is nice. Just all together, it's a very interesting one. And but the effect, however, is very... I think this is more of a constructed thing.
Yeah. Yes, this is basically divest.
Yeah.
Yes, this is basically divest, but you can hit an unearthed creature as well, which is pretty good.
And it exiles.
It sure does. That's the important part, is you can exile from the hand and from the graveyard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm giving this a sideboard grade. Like, I don't think I'm main decking this card very often. I mean, it does hit like both of the actual important card types in this set, but I still don't think it's worth having this card just be blank in the late game. Even though I think in this set more than a lot of others, you're going to have a chance for this to not be blank.
Yeah, turn 1 hand hate is... Yeah, the fact that you aren't running for this, and you can't be like, okay, I'm going to have in 70 of my starting hands, is really hard. So, yeah. I still think it's a good card, and I will be playing it more often just because I like it. But yes, it's probably not deserving of 5 or anything.
You know
so
what?
It's probably...
I actually think that if you have a pretty good deck that has ways to discard this, that this could be a very main deckable card. But you need to have a very specific deck. Most decks won't be this deck.
No.
Like red-black, probably no chance. Blue-black, possibly. If you have the benefit of having this on like turn 1 or whenever your opponent has cards in hand, but you don't have to pay the cost of it being dead in the late game because you can discard it, it goes up massively because the opportunity cost is very low.
Absolutely.
And it's not like Thoughtseize where you lose 2 life. It's just the free roll. You don't get any life loss. You're trading your card and 1 mana for any artifact or creature from their hand, and also some graveyard stuff. So I think in that instance it would go up a lot and possibly be main deckable. Otherwise, I'm probably just sideboarding this in against decks that I know are playing lots of artifacts and creatures and not specifically like blue-red.
Yeah.
Yeah. Gnawing Vermin. When it enters the battlefield, target player mills 2 cards, and when it dies, target creature you don't control gets -1/-1. So this is interesting. This is...
I think this is good. I think it's good.
So it kills things that have 2 toughness when it blocks them.
Yes. So it will happily kill a bear.
Yeah.
You can also sacrifice it to go kill their 3/1 or whatever they've got at the time.
Yeah.
It's not as good as, remember in the Forgotten Realms, there was a zombie that when it died, you either got a shambling ghast, I want to say.
Yeah. The treasure token.
Yeah,
or the,
you either got a treasure or
-1/-1.
gave -1/-1. I ended up going -1 more often than I thought I would. This isn't as good as that. No. It does mill you some, which can be worth stuff in black. But I think, I don't want to fill my deck with these. These cards don't win the game, but they do help me do a lot of different things.
Yeah, I think this card is... I think this card's like teetering on like a 4.5 for me. I think if you see a lot of one toughness things, that you're gonna want it a lot more. So maybe you're gonna like play like one of these, and then you'll pull one in from the sideboard. But I don't think you generally want this ability too much. It feels like a lot of your twos are just gonna have better applications than this, and the format's
Yeah,
not so incredibly fast that you're so worried about getting run over that you need to be playing things like this. This just feels a little bit underwhelming for me.
yeah, exactly.
And in the situation where you can bring it in, or you can get a one toughness creature killed with it, or have some kind of sacrifice
Yeah,
energy, that's where I think it starts to shine around the 4.5 range. Otherwise, it's like fillery sideboard.
exactly. Yeah.
Next up is Go for the Throat.
This is a classic.
It sure is. You have the numbers on how many
I
of these creatures
do.
are
Yeah.
artifacts.
So before we started talking, I started doing a bit of stats on it. So there are 154 creatures in the set. That's commons, uncommons, rares, mythics. So 55 of those are artifact creatures. So about a third of them, over a third, don't get hit by Go for the Throat. Importantly, that if we cut it down to commons and uncommons, it's 33 out of 102. So that's still around a third. Go for the Throat in a lot of people's minds, and especially if they've played, formats that aren't like, especially if they've used it in formats that aren't just retail limit. This card is a lot worse than those applications. Um, and specifically thinking, if you've played it in Cube a whole bunch and you're like, oh yeah, it's 2 mana killer thing. It's not. It's not just 2 mana killer thing. You do actually worry about it. And the problem is a lot of the biggest creatures are artifacts. It's good. It's still a really good card, but I don't see it as the premium removal of the set
Yeah,
because it isn't.
I think this doesn't approach 6. I think this is like a 5. This is good.
Yeah,
This is a good card, but you're gonna
you're
side it
still
out
happy to have it.
sometimes.
Yeah, exactly.
Not
There's some
super duper
matchups where they
often, but
just
you don't want to
yeah.
have this stuck inside your hand. There's nothing worse than a conditional removal spell sitting in your hand while you have nothing on board and you're getting beaten down.
Yeah.
Next up is Gruesome Realization. This is 3 mana for a sorcery. You could draw 2 cards and lose 2 life, or creatures your opponents control get -1/-1 until end of turn.
Yeah. So I think this is pretty big. Um, Again, I ran the numbers before on the number of creatures in the set with only one toughness. It's only 28, but that's around, sorry, for commons and uncommons, it's only 28. So that's around a quarter of creatures that you're often going to see. But also, there are a lot of 1/1 soldier tokens running around as well. So I think that mode is relevant. And especially if you are looking at blue black draw card payoffs, this isn't bad. Like it's not Sign in Blood, that was 2 mana for that first effect. But I would rather pay 1 more mana and have the flexibility of just absolutely blowing my opponent out every now and then.
Yeah, I think I'm comfortable putting this as a card that I'm happy to sideboard, because I always
Yeah.
have the fail case. Because the problem with like creatures your opponents control get -1/-1 as a sideboard card is it just doesn't do anything sometimes. With this, you at least, if you bring it out from the sideboard, have the option of drawing cards and losing life.
Yes,
And for
exactly.
that reason, I'm giving it a sideboard grade instead of like a straight unplayable, which I think it might have been a little otherwise. But I don't think I'm really going to main deck this. Unless there's just no other good way to draw cards, which it doesn't seem like there's too many good ways to draw cards, but there's a lot of activated abilities. It feels like you're going to have ways to spend your mana.
Yeah. I don't think it's going to be a problem.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think I'm on like 4 ish, maybe 3.5 ish for Gruesome Realization in the main deck, and then out of the sideboard it gets pretty good. It's definitely better than the 3.5 out of the sideboard. It's at the very least playable, at least a 4. Next up we have Gurgling Anointer, which is a 3 mana 1/3 flying Phyrexian Horror. And it gets a +1/+1 counter whenever you draw your second card each turn. And when it dies, you get a creature card back from your graveyard to the battlefield with mana value less than or equal to its power.
Yes.
So on its face, you can get back a 0 or 1 from the graveyard.
I don't think there are any zeros in the set, but yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
so
there's Ornithopter.
You're right. Okay, no, you are completely correct. There is Ornithopter. Yes. So
But there's,
I mean,
there's a couple ones, but they're kind of marginal. Although there is an
I mean, if you had
uncommon white
gnawing,
one.
if you had gnawing vermin, you play out the rat there.
Yeah, that's
It
true.
dies. You play out Gurgling Anointer. Oh no, they shut down immediately. I get something at least, and it mills me again. I get a bit more value.
Even the worst case scenario that this just dies immediately, there are things you can get back. They're not like the best in the world, but they do exist. But the real money is that this is a flyer that grows bigger and has a relevant death trigger.
Exactly. You are very happy to be blocking with this card. Like, I see this as a flying blocker, basically, because it starts with the 1/3 stat line. You're blocking out the Windrakes, and then you go big enough that you kill, like, that they can't attack in anymore.
Yeah, it doesn't take a lot of work to make this at least passable. Just like it's weird because the more of the draw your second card each turn payoffs you have in your deck, the less likely or the less you want to play them immediately or play the enablers because you want to play out your draw second card each turn cards. Like, oh cool, I gotta play my Gurgling Anointer. Oh cool, I gotta play my next one. And then you start like trying to actually play the cards that let you draw your second cards. It's an interesting little sub game you have to play with those. But I do think this card's quite good. I don't know how good. I definitely think it's above just regular playable. I think it's above a 4.
I would say it's the top end of 4 for me. Though, I mean, I will probably be playing this a lot just with what I would like to be playing in this set.
I don't know. I'm inclined to with the enablers that I've seen, and the fact that like there are definitely some good things that you can get back with it immediately, even in just this color. That I'm inclined to give this like a 5, maybe a 5.5.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's very valid.
You got to do some work, but it definitely pays you off.
Oh, absolutely, 100%. Yeah.
Next up is No One Left Behind, 5 mana. Sorcery, the spell costs 3 less to cast if it targets a creature with mana value 3 or less. Return target creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield. So this is the way you're getting back your big titans from the graveyard without paying the big cost.
If you don't want to unearth them, this is the way to get them back properly.
Yes.
And it's pretty good, I would say. The fact that, you know, if you're in a pinch and you absolutely need your small creature, it gets a lot nicer for you is, I think, a very nice touch. I don't know if it makes it good, but yeah.
Well, thankfully there are some mill enablers in the set. And there's also a little bit of discard if you're in specifically blue-black, which is where I think this card really probably will end up getting played more often. Honestly, I don't think in white-black that you want this as much as you want the actual creatures. But I think in blue-black, the option to like pitch things makes this card the most playable it can be. And
I think so, yes.
With that in mind, I think this is a sort of like a build around 5. I think if you're in the deck where this is good, it can be pretty solid.
Absolutely.
I think the work that you're doing to make it work is about equivalent to just the work it would take to go try and cast the big thing. You're just doing it maybe a little bit earlier. And there's no guarantee that you're going to
Yeah.
have all that setup work out to where you can do this on 5, which means you'll probably be doing this somewhere around turn 6 to 10. A lot of times, probably a little later than turn 5, which means realistically, you could have probably found some kind of way to cast those cards with mana, like Power Stones and stuff. So I think it's about equivalent to that. It's just a different style of putting it into play than that. Yeah, I'd say the deck that it's built for can make it to a 5, but in most decks it's probably going to play closer to like a 3.5.
I would think so. Yeah, I think so.
And last up for the black uncommons, we have Thran Vigil, which is an enchantment for 2 mana, and whenever one or more artifact and or creature cards leave your graveyard during your turn, put a 1/1 counter on target creature you control.
So ways that they can leave your graveyard include, unearthing things, returning them to your hand, reanimating them, or if they get exiled by something else.
Yeah.
I would be very careful around this card. I don't think it's made to be a limited archetype. I think this is here for constructed potentially.
So the immediate alarm bells for me are during your turn.
Yeah.
And one or more.
One or more. Yeah.
If you exile your whole graveyard, you only get 1 counter, and it can also only happen during your turn. And for that reason, I think in limited this card does nothing. I mean, it doesn't do literally nothing, but it just doesn't do
literally
anything.
nothing. But it's not going to be enough. I think this is a trap card, basically.
Like this is the most wheel spinningest, going nowhereist card I think I've seen. I don't think it's a design mistake. I think they're trying to get you to do something, but this is just not a supported archetype. It's like they know that there are ways to make cards leave your graveyard, but they're usually so expensive. Like all of the regrowth effects, like getting a 1/1 counter on top of it is not that big of a bonus for it to be like a whole card's worth. Like this is a lot of setup for not too much benefit. So I'm giving it a 2.
Yeah, I agree fully.
Well, that does it for all of the black cards, and we've gone through the multicolor, the white, the blue, and the black. And that's where we're going to cut off this part of the set review. We have another follow-up coming with red, green, as well as colorless and lands. And then at some point later, possibly the rares and mythics in a separate video. But for now, we're just going to go ahead and head to outros. Are there any handles you'd like to let the people know about? Any ways to get in contact with you? Anything that you have going on you'd like to shill?
Just the standard Twitter.
Okay. Well, you can find that inside of my description. Super duper easy link there. Yeah. I'll also have my Twitter in there as well. I have a couple more articles that will this month probably be going up on the Hipsters of the Coast website. One about limited archetypes in this very format, as well as another article about design space of commons in the modern era and how things have been subtly changing towards more complex, even though the word from Wizards has constantly been that reducing complexity for newer players is a goal. That's all I have. Thank you so much for tuning in. You've been watching Robot Rallis. Please feel free to leave a comment, possibly like the video, or subscribe if you feel like it. If you enjoy the sound of Laura's voice, or maybe mine even. Thank you so much for tuning in. Have a good time.